Hello, 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 my beautiful blossoms, blooms, and buds. I see somebody's already here, and that's very exciting. Whoops. Trying to move my monitor just a little bit because it's a little high up. Okay. There we go. Hello. Oh, there's two people here. Welcome. I'm excited to see that because I know we had a break last week because I went to a convention, which overall was pretty good. Hi, Chi Kiki. Welcome. I hope you had a good week and weekend. I know I had a lot of fun. The only thing that really kind of put a little damper on the whole thing was I did end up getting food poisoning, which was kind of awful. But I got 2 good days in before then, and I found some really cool stuff. Like I actually have some of it here because I'm so excited about it. So this is just cute. It's by the Ghost Egg. I'm gonna hold it sideways, but it's a little ghosty on a sheet. There we go. Isn't that cute? I'll show their info. By the Ghost Egg, and it's super cute. I'm gonna have to figure out where to put this. This one behind this has some spicy ones, but this one I thought was really interesting. I'm gonna take it out. The shiny's not working. I'm gonna do just a little show and tell because I'm so excited about the stuff I got at the convention. And I think these people deserve a little bit extra, little extra advertising. Let's see if I can get it to focus. Is that in focus? Maybe if I put it over my face. Well, it's very cool looking, and the artist is 6 Pades Art. Let's see. That's not working. Here, they have a card. Cathresix. I'm not very good at this, but they have some really amazing stuff. The other stuff is a little spicy, so I don't think I can actually show it. Because I'm trying to be good with the YouTube overlords. But then my boys, they're so cute. And then it's made by KR Art. Portrait artist and illustrator. This one is also made by KR Art, I think. Right? Okay, so this one I have to take out because this one was absolutely stunning. And this is definitely going up on my wall. Look at how gorgeous this is. Hi, Guang Ha Hue. I said it right? The little hearts? All good. Thank you for stopping by. I was doing a little art show and tell. Right? Oh, good. I did say it right. Yay! I'm trying. I really am. But yeah, I was just showing off some things I ended up getting at the convention that I'm very excited about. Right? This artist is... It's either Onion or No Yan. It's right at the bottom. There it is. You can barely see it because it's all shiny, but I'm trying to focus it right there. Yeah, that one's definitely going on my wall. I also ended up getting some stickers, and My mom says this is creepy, but I think it's absolutely adorable. It looks like it's about to have a fight with somebody. And I love that it's a fish. We all know the fish book. And I couldn't help myself. So, I also ended up getting some Zines, which are fantastic, but I know that you guys are here for the book. So right? It's adorable and creepy if you keep looking at it. The eyes are a little unnerving, I agree. But it's got that slightly defiant, don't mess with me or my brother, I'll beat you up kind of air. Which I appreciate. But Golden Terrace. I do not own Golden Terrace. I'm not the author, publisher. I don't get anything from this except for the enjoyment of doing it. Hi, Mo Mars Rover. Welcome. I don't know if you were here, but I just did a little mini con art showcase of some of the things I got this weekend. So I had a lot of fun. But yes, I do not own this. I don't get anything from it except for the enjoyment of doing it. The only thing I own is the physical copy of Golden Terrace in front of me and my time. So please don't sue me. What else? This is a 17 plus novel. That means adult themes will be discussed in here. This is a very chill stream if you couldn't already tell. So I hope you enjoy that. And if you don't, I hope you give it a chance. And if you still don't, that's okay. We all like what we like. And I don't judge unless you're hurting somebody and it's not consensual. Then a little bit. But that's a whole different topic. Anyway, I hope you all are doing well and have had a good start to your week. And today we are going to cover chapter 23 through chapter 29 of Golden Terrace. Last time we kind of had a little bit of the backstory history and found out kind of the first breaking point in our boys' relationship and why they're so at odds, sort of, and the people they are now. And we're discovering there's a little bit more to one of our boys. Yeah. All right. Chapter 23. The capital at nightfall and the lighting of the lamps. Actually, I'll do tea break first. Oh yeah, last thing. This was a delightful Karoke made by Night Owl, who is part of our Kictor group, and she is a delightful person in person. It is a baby. This is actually perfect because it's one of my absolute best friend's birthdays soon, as in yesterday. And she loves Legend of Zelda. Like, I would absolutely keep this adorable little dude, but she will adore it. So I am so excited that I found this. And if Night Owl ever watches this, you do amazing work. And with that, I finally will be starting. The capital at nightfall and the lighting of the lamps. The whole desk was stacked all over with official documents. Yan Xiaohan had his head buried in them, hopelessly busy. The porridge and pastries on the tray had cooled long ago. The old butler hesitated at the door for a long time, then finally braced himself and quietly snuck in. Master, you've been reading all day. You ought to rest your eyes and have something to eat. Yan Xiaohan was unmoved. When he had written the final few lines, he tossed aside his brush and rubbed his wrist. He leaned indolently back in his chair, his tall, slender body curving into an arc. He sighed lengthily. Fine, I'm finally done with it. Hardly had he spoken than he suddenly turned his head aside and sneezed. The butler said in a panic, "Hey now, what's this? You mustn't catch cold. Shall I have a bowl of ginger tea prepared for you?" Yan Xiaohan wrinkled his nose, waved a hand, and said, "You're fretting over nothing. I'm fine." The butler, smiling, said, "It said that one's for thinking of you, two's for cursing you, three's for longing for you. There must be somebody thinking of you." Right after he said this, Yan Xiaohan sneezed again. The old servant said, "I'll just go have them prepare that ginger tea." Yan Xiaohan snorted. "Forget it. Come back. Isn't this to be expected?" At first the butler was confused about what was expected about it. Shortly, he understood what this meant. He scrutinized Yan Xiaohan's expression and teased. "I suppose the Lord Marquis is in Yan Xiao and missing you right now, sir." He continued, "Forgive me for speaking out of turn, master, but this constant bustle of yours, working day and night, is truly too bad for your health. If the Lord Marquis was here, no doubt he wouldn't let you work this hard." Yan Xiaohan raised his eyebrows and scoffed. "That sounds like my wife hasn't even crossed the threshold yet, and you're already using him to pressure me?" The butler saw that he didn't seem angry and hadn't sneered. Instead, he appeared rather cheerful. So he boldly said, "You and the Lord Marquis will be living in conjugal harmony in the future, supporting each other throughout your lives. There will be someone thinking of your comfort, giving you every tender care. How can that be called pressuring?" At his ingratiating words, Yan Xiaohan's face broke into a smile. When he was finished smiling, he said, "It's nearly the end of the year. I've seen people from the countryside come filing into the capital to bring New Year's gifts. The Marquis of Jinning will be celebrating the New Year in the north this year. It's colder there. Pick out some thicker furs and silks and load them into a cart to send to him. Apart from that, how is it coming with the craftsman I asked you to find?" He'd left only a few days ago and likely hadn't yet eaten all the provisions he had brought from the capital, and here was Yan Xiaohan concerned with sending him new things. The butler thought to himself, never mind how very stately this master of their master was ordinarily. When he truly came to love a person, there would still be all manner of tender feelings, attentiveness, and consideration, and the inability to put aside or cast away. While inwardly glorifying Yan Xiaohan, the butler answered, "Yes, sir. I found all the craftsmen. Since it won't require a great construction effort, 2 or 3 craftsmen should suffice. It's just that for the pool you mentioned, a design will have to be drawn and the stone purchased. They will only begin construction once you have approved the plans. It will be a little slow." "It's all right if it's slow, just as long as it's finished by the 12th of the second month," Yan Xiaohan said. "Put some hard work into it. If anything needs to be purchased, just come get the money. If no one from the Duke of Ying Manor shows their face, you can consult with the people from the Ministry of Rights." Also, it sounds like he's building it in Duke of Ying Manor. Maybe? I might be reading that wrong. Since Fu Shen had left, the things Yan Xiaohan had to handle had increased abruptly. In fact, before Fu Shen had come to stay, this was how he had always lived. It was just that when a patient who needed to be waited upon had arrived in the house, Yan Xiaohan, worried about not having enough time for him and unwilling to disturb Fu Shen's convalescence with routine business, had pushed many things back again and again, up until now. While Fu Shen had been living at Yan Manor, apart from when he was summoned to the palace, Yan Xiaohan practically hadn't spent the night out of the house, hadn't attended social gatherings. After getting off duty, he had immediately gone home to accompany him while he ate and took his medicine, to hold him up while he exercised his legs in the courtyard, to help him wash up and bathe. Though the two of them had occupied separate rooms, he always went to Fu Shen's bedroom to have a look at him before going to bed, leaving only when he had fallen asleep. In fact, some of these duties could have been handed over to servants. But Yan Xiaohan had seen with his own eyes how Fu Shen had been living at the Marquis of Jinning's manor. Since he had ended up in his hands, he wasn't going to let Fu Shen experience any unnecessary hardship. He had watched this person disappear into the distance time and time again, knowing full well that he couldn't convince him to stay. Now that Fu Shen couldn't walk, could he try to convince him, tell him not to leave again? Sounds like he has some pretty deep feelings here. Apart from official business, he had also been dealing with some private matters lately. One matter was sending Wei Zhu Zhao to investigate the cut sleeve rumor. And another matter was the truth of the assassination attempt on Fu Shen. His Majesty had ordered the 3 judicial chief ministries to investigate the latter. After 2 months, the ministries had only just yesterday presented a memorial to the throne winding up the case. Yan Xiaohan had also read that memorial. It was all empty verbiage. For the simple reason of falling short in their duty to protect, the Ministry of Justice and the Imperial Court of Judicial Review had arrested some officials of high and low rank among the local troops and turned up a handful of Tartar spies, interrogating them to extract confessions, then heaped all the blame onto the Eastern Tartars, called the case closed. Sounds like a cover-up. As for who had investigated the attack on the diplomatic mission, where the gunpowder that had caused the landslide had come from, whether the target of the assassination had been the Eastern Tartars' youngest prince or Fu Shen, all these questions remained shrouded behind a heavy fog. The chief officials of the 3 judicial ministries had a tacit understanding among them. None of them were willing to make a fuss over this case. Probably they had already worked out His Majesty's reservations concerning Fu Shen from the arranged marriage. Only a right assistant investigating censor of the court of the censorate named Gu Shanlu persisted in believing that doubts remained about this case and kept asking for scrutiny. But his memorial to the throne was never even brought before the emperor's eyes. Been stuck at the bottom of the stack of documents by his note-taking eunuch. I mean, I get it. The eunuch is looking out for his master, but that still really sucks for Fu Shen. Yan Xiaohan couldn't openly employ the Feilong Guard to investigate, and doing it in secret took more effort, while the results were scant. Because this concerned the Beiyuan army's secrets and Fu Shen had always taken strict precautions against the Feilong Guard, it was very hard for his people to learn any useful information. The only harvest, after 2 months, was that they had dug up a wild channel used for private exchange between Tong Zhao's troops and the horse thieves at the border. The wild channels corresponded to the official channels, as the name suggested. This indicated secret trade between government soldiers and common merchants. Merchants traveled everywhere. The troops could purchase provisions and medicines from them, as well as foreign firearms and swords. There had even been people acting as go-betweens for the Eastern Tartars and the Han forces, exchanging food, tea, salt, and other such goods for war horses. In the past, the official channels had been on and off, and the tax is extremely high. So the wild channels had emerged to meet demands and continued despite repeated prohibition. Without exaggeration, every defense force at Great Zhao's border had at least one wild channel. Supposing that the gunpowder really had come through the wild channel, given that the Qishan Gap was situated at the extreme north of Tangshan, the best opportunity to lay an ambush and the greatest suspicion belonged to the Tangshan Defense Force. According to Fu Shen, His Majesty's spy in the Beiyuan army was a high-ranking officer. The Tangshan troops had been split off from the Beiyuan cavalry many years ago, and the Beiyuan cavalry's western line of defense in the area of Yanshou were closely connected to it. Perhaps Fu Shen already knew the identity of that person. But Yan Xiaohan didn't need to know the details, since he couldn't stick his hand into the Beiyuan army's affairs. But if Fu Shen couldn't get rid of that person, whether it was for Fu Shen's sake or his own, whether from public or private motives, Yan Xiaohan had to add another thrust of the knife. As for the other matter, that had been completely outside of his expectations. The cut-sleeve rumors had actually come from Fu Shen's stepmother, Madame Qin. Her daughter was the crown's first consort in the Eastern Palace and had passed it on to him as pillow talk. That was why the crown prince had been able to think up a cheap trick like the arranged marriage and bring it to Emperor Yuan Tai to ease his burdens. There was no need to investigate the rest. All one had to do was think. Madame Qin had gone to great pains to stab Fu Shen in the back simply because she wanted her own son to inherit the title. She was afraid of being thwarted by Fu Shen, so she had gotten ahead, trying to make sure that Fu Shen would have no progeny. Selfish and vicious woman had used a tactic from the inner courtyards involving a shameful secret. It had nearly set off a change in power over the military force of Beiyuan, destabilized the court. How ironic. How stupid. But when Yan Xiaohan first heard the information, what he was angriest about wasn't her starting a rumor about Fu Shen being a cut-sleeve, causing the current crisis. Instead, he remembered Fu Shen in the cave saying, "I don't have a mother, either." It was one thing not to have a mother, tormented by an uncaring and vicious stepmother as well. How had he been living all these years? Yan Xiaohan calmed himself briefly in the Feilong Guard's depot, then found a subordinate and instructed. "The Marquis of Jinning has a brother named Fu Ya. I hear he's often to be found frittering his time away outside. At such a young age, he's already a man of unrestrained spirit. His Majesty has never liked the Duke of Ying Manor to make too much of a spectacle. Since the Marquis of Jinning is betrothed to me, I should give his brother what he is due." The subordinate was wise in the ways of the world. It was clear to him at once. "I understand. Might I ask, Your Honor, would you prefer him to become unfit for anything at once, or have his health slowly undercut with drugs?" "There's no rush," Yan Xiaohan said with a cold laugh. "Take it slow. It's best if there's a flare-up when they ask to have the title conferred on him. I would like to see who else in the Fu family will be able to undertake the title of Duke of Ying in the future." See, remember how I said this is an adult novel? Here's a little bit of that peeking in. These people screwed over my future husband/wife. We're going to make him addicted to meth. Or whatever this, probably opium, if we're thinking of the time period. Didn't Madame Qin like it when people had no progeny? Then let her darling son have a taste of it. As for first consort Fu, Yan Xiaohan had planned to sort her out along with Fu Ya. Okay, that is the second time my phone has gone off. I am so sorry. I am going to turn it off right now. Shh. Thank you. Okay. Didn't Madame Qin like it when people had no progeny? Then let her darling son have a taste of it. As for first consort Fu, Yan Xiaohan had planned to sort her out along with Fu Ya. But news came from the Crown Prince's eastern palace that Fu Ting had attempted to frame the Crown Princess using voodoo, had been exposed by a trusted maid, causing the plot to fall through. Owning to her being part of the Fu family, the Crown Princess had spared her life and only stripped her of her rank, giving her the punishment of cleaning the floors and doing odd jobs. The Crown Prince was witless, but the Crown Princess Lady Sen was a clever person. Yan Xiaohan was only too glad to have someone spare him the trouble. Observing the recent trend of events at the Duke of Ying Manor, he thought not without pleasure. I wonder what Madame Qin will think in the future when she sees the fates of her two children. Well, getting a little dark there, buddy. In Yanshao City, Fu Shen had returned to the northern border in the name of giving offerings to the dead. But before he could resign his post as commander of the Beiyuan army, as soon as he entered the city, he was welcomed back to Yan Shao's providential seat by his subordinates. Apart from the officers out on patrol, all the major and minor officers got together and rushed back to Yanshou City to wish him a long life in conjugal bliss and the speedy birth of his first son, nearly angering the Marquis of Jinning into getting out of his wheelchair. Oh, yes, the military. Nearly angering the Marquis of Jinning into getting out of his wheelchair. This crowd of big monkeys clamored for half the day and at last were kicked out by General Fu, shamed into fury, who told Xiao Xun and his subordinates to drive them half a li away. That's hilarious. In the afternoon, the Beiyuan army's doctor, Du Ling, examined the wounds on his legs. After examining them, he smiled and said, "Congratulations." Fu Shen had already developed a reflexive reaction. Cold-faced, he said, "The same to you." Du Ling was brought up short. The two of them stared at each other in dismay. Du Ling gave an awkward cough. Holding back his laughter, he said, "I mean, congratulations, Lord Marquis. Your wounds are healing well. The one who has been treating you must be a divine physician of great renown. The bones have largely knitted, the muscles have strength. Another half year of recovery, and you'll be able to leave your wheelchair and walk like an ordinary person." Well, damn, good job, buddy. Fu Shen was silent for a moment. Pretending to be casual, he asked, "To recover completely, how long would that take?" "A full recovery is impossible," Du Ling said patiently. "Judging by the current state of your convalescence, if you follow my original plan, 60 to 70% is the limit." Fu Shen muttered to himself and made no comment on this. He only said, "Thank you, Mr. Du." Not long after Du Ling left, a young man opened the door and came in. This man was slightly older than Fu Shen, with a clear and handsome countenance, and a mild and friendly expression. Not Yan Xiaohan's sort of gentleness, which was like a mask, but the natural grace of a gentleman. When Fu Shen saw him, he released the angry breath he had taken. Pointing to a chair, he said, "You are here, Qing Heng. Sit. You've been working hard." The man's name was Yu Xiao Ting, courtesy name Qing Heng. He was a close friend of Fu Shen's, capable and efficient. While Fu Shen had been away, the Beiyuan army's affairs had been overseen by him, keeping them from getting into a total muddle. Yu Xiao Ting couldn't possibly be in the mood to sit. He wished he could reach out and grab Fu Shen by the collar. "What is the situation in the capital now? And what's going on with the arranged marriage?" Fu Shen picked out some general information about the situation to tell him. After listening, Yu Xiao Ting's expression remained ugly. He quietly said, "His Majesty really is determined to boil the hound after it's caught the rabbit. What good does it do him to destroy his own defenses? He is the sovereign of the nation. The things he sees are different from what you and I see," Fu Shen said. "Luckily, he only finds me offensive to the eye. If one day he should find the whole Beiyuan army offensive to the eye, then everything really would be over." Yu Qiao Ting shook his head and asked, "So what are you going to do?" "Me?" Fu Shen said in confusion. "Get married. Can I resist the imperial edict?" Yu Qiao Ting said, "I know you're going to get married. Stop showing off. I mean, are you really planning to hand back the Beiyuan army to the court like this? Let His Majesty do as he pleases?" Seeing Fu Shen hold back on answering, he gave another hint. "His Majesty is getting on in years. Jing Yuan, you have to think of the future." Everybody be wanting him to revolt. Chapter 24. "It's a good thing we're thoroughly acquainted, or I'd have thrown you out by now, you know that?" Fu Shen said. "Should the mighty expeditionary general of the North be talking about meddling in the imperial succession?" Yu Qiao Ting said, "With the knife already at our throats, what is there that can't be said? I've never known you to go in for such lofty and impractical notions. Are you submitting to fate, or do you have your own plans?" Fu Shen, caught out by him, laughed. "What is your view?" Yu Qiaoting said, "The crown prince has acted without virtue. Prince Jin is incompetent. The rest are all mediocre. There's only Prince Qi." Fu Shen snatched away his words. He said, "Publicly, His Highness Prince Qi has always had a name for being virtuous and able. Privately, my little sister is his first wife. So you think that he is suited to inheriting the empire, that he can be a good emperor in the future?" Yu Qiaoting nodded. Fu Shen said, Qing Heng, Qing Heng, wake up. If Prince Qi ultimately does ascend the throne, I'll be a relation of the emperor on his wife's side. How many of those have come to good ends in history? Never mind that he's polite enough to me now. Once he's sitting in the seat, I'm afraid it will be another matter," he continued. "You and I are leaders of the army and already have no end of worries. He would be the lord of hundreds of thousands. He'll only have more to think about than the two of us. Weren't my late father and His Majesty once known as sovereign and minister on good terms? Now that it's come to making trouble for his son, is he still following the old pattern just as mercilessly?" Yu Qiaoting became more and more fretful as he spoke. His hair was about to turn white. "According to you, Prince Qi won't do either. Who else suitable is there among the direct line of descent?" He suddenly remembered something and gave a violent start. He said, "Jing Yuan, you aren't thinking of having His Highness Prince Ying's—" Fu Shen openly acknowledged, "I've thought about it." Yu Qiaoting sighed in awe. "General, you truly are bold." "But it's impossible," Fu Shen said. "His background alone is a major problem." Yu Qiaoting said, "Then what?" Fu Shen said, "I've often thought whether it's His Majesty the Crown Prince, Prince Qi, or anyone else sitting on that imperial throne, whether he is a capable ruler or an inept one, why, in the end, will the Beiyuan cavalry always have become a fishbone he can't swallow? I won't conceal from you, I have even wavered. I thought that perhaps the problem wasn't with His Majesty, but that the mere existence of the Beiyuan cavalry itself was a mistake." Yu Qiaoting sympathized with his feelings and sighed. "But the Beiyuan cavalry has defended the northern border for so many years, worked assiduously protecting our homes and our nation. Where is the wrong in that? Fu Shen said. The Beiyuan cavalry is the keen sword of the nation. A sword can't be wrong. The wrong lies with the person wielding the sword. So long as the hilt is in another's hand, we will always be subject to suspicion. Yu Qiao Ting was stunned by General Fu's speech, which was even more treasonous than his own. Jing Yuan, are you planning to revolt? What are you panicking about? I haven't done anything yet, have I? Fu Shen laughed lightly. Moreover, I'm getting married. Am I going to pass up a nice life, getting worked up over some trifles and end up alone? Yu Qiaoting truly couldn't restrain himself. He said sarcastically, General, knock it off already. You're a blind cat who's run across a dead rat. Don't brag as if you've been bestowed a perfect marriage by heaven. Fu Shen said nothing. After talking a cartload of nonsense, the conclusion was that they couldn't revolt, couldn't force an abdication. The unresolvable was still unresolvable, and what was worrying would continue to worry them. Fu Shen, in fact, had a dim, hazy notion, but it was too universally shocking. If he spoke it aloud, Yu Qiaoting might well bring in Army Doctor Du to treat his brain. He considered it and ultimately shut his mouth in the nick of time. New Year's Eve was on its way. The atmosphere in Yanshao City was festive. Soldiers spent the whole year overworked. Only at the new year could they relax slightly. The city residents had always been close with the Beiyuan cavalry. Things were sent to Fu Shen's manor all day. When the servant from Yan Manor drove into the city and found the provincial seat, he was nearly drowned by the heaps of chickens, ducks, and geese at the gate. Fu Shen was in the courtyard, eating the cook's secret recipe meatballs, drinking and chatting with Yu Qiaoting, Xiao Shun, and others. Hearing that someone had come to bring presents from the capital, the wine he had just drunk shot straight to his head with a roar. These are kind of light chapters. I'm enjoying this. He forgot that he was still in a wheelchair. Leaned on the table, he automatically made to stand up and was held down by the sharp-eyed and deft-handed Zhao Jun. General, I'll push you out. Yu Qiaoting said doubtfully, Why are you going out? Have him come in. The newcomer was a personal attendant who was often with Yan Xiaohan. He came forward and first asked after Fu Shen's health and kowtowed to him, calling him Lord Marquis. He pronounced a great deal of well wishes, then finally said, Presents from our master of the house. The master specially instructed me to bring the Lord Marquis some of the new products to taste. Though the Lord Marquis is away from the capital, he can still sample the tastes of his hometown. This is the inventory of gifts. Please look over it, Lord Marquis. The words, our master of the house, instantly ironed Fu Shen's chest flat. Yu Qiaoting laughed and said derisively, Just get a load of that talk. Already your nearest and dearest are distant, and those with hardly any connection are close. The general says every day that Yanshao is the place that birthed him, raised him. Well, now, I suppose we've been shown. Hey, Jingyuan, where is your hometown, really? Fu Shen forced down the corners of his mouth and poked him away with a crutch. Impassively, he accepted the inventory of gifts, gave a tip to the personal attendant, and ordered him to withdraw and rest, while he himself, encircled and watched by a crowd of busybody geese, opened the cases and reviewed what the hell Yan Xiaohan had sent him. Yan Xiaohan was a firm and canny person. The relationship between the two of them couldn't develop too fast. It had to be carried out properly on the surface. Therefore, these holiday gifts were scrupulously correct, all ordinary game and furs, with no extravagant gifts and no fault for anyone to find. Fu Shen breathed a sigh of relief, though he was inexplicably a bit disappointed. He laughed at himself for being so idle he was making problems out of nothing. While his mind was wandering, he heard Yu Chiao Ting give an exclamation. Odd. Are there also wild geese among these holiday gifts? The first case of game contained a pair of frozen wild geese. Zhao Jun and Yu Chiao Ting each picked one up. They looked at them and clicked their tongues. We have plenty of deep mountains and old forests here. We can have any game we want. I was wondering why this crafty-minded Lord Yan had to choose to send game here. After all that fuss, it was for the sake of these 2 wild geese. Isn't that right, Chong Shan? Zhao Shun nodded forcefully beside him. Right, for the sake of these wild geese. Fu Shen, as if frozen, said, What are you rattling on about? Don't act like you've never seen wild geese before. Impressive. Yu Chiao-ting was determined to rattle on. Are these ordinary wild geese? These are the wild geese used for the 6 etiquettes, Lord Marquis. Shut up. There's no need for you to say it. You think I don't know the 6 etiquettes include wild geese? Feigning indifference, Fu Shen pulled his long furred cloak higher, letting the fur hide the roots of his ears. He blushing. Ooh, he blushing, he said. There must be reciprocity. He's gonna give something back. Chongshen, go find 2 deer skins and send them back to him with the return gifts on the 15th. Amid Fu Shen and Yan Xiaohan's tumultuous flirtation, the unluckiest person was Xiao Shun. Little General Zhao was very grudging. Even going to his death, he still had to drag someone in to share his fare, so he dragged Yu Xiaoting, the expert in stirring up trouble, away with him. Fu Shen, at last left in peace, slowly let a burning hot breath out of his throat, feeling that all his internal organs were about to be burned up by the wine. By the wine. He bent down to look at the other case. As expected, under the tanned furs, he found another present. A hand-sewn pair of fur knee braces. A pair of wild geese, a pair of knee braces. Their value was no more than a handful of silver pieces, but all the other items in the 2 big cases were there to serve as background for these 2 gifts. Fu Shen didn't know whether to sigh at the amount of thought he had put into it or scold him for being wasteful. Considered carefully, this was always Yan Xiaohan's style of conduct. He seemed to squander warmth and consideration, hand out benefits unstingingly, but he had only a little drop of sincerity, not at all sweet, hidden in a deep, dark corner. But this bit of sincerity was like jade under a coating of stone. As soon as it came to light, it would turn everything around it into plain rock. On the 15th of the first month, Yan Xiaohan received return gifts from Yan Xiao. The true gifts were also mixed into a big heap of northern specialties. They were a pair of deerskins and a morning calm flower jade pendant. Fu Shen's eccentric present gave Lord Yan such a fright that he hardly slept. At night, he held the jade pendant, looking it over suspiciously. Now he suspected that he knew something. Now he thought that Fu Shen wanted to use this method to express burying the hatchet. Then, thoughts running wild, he recalled Fu Shen's resolute expression when he had shattered that jade pendant. Could he be planning another clean break? Yan Xiaohan felt around for the bedside cabinet and took a small sandalwood box from it. When it was opened, there was an old jade pendant wrapped in dark red satin inside. That jade pendant had broken very thoroughly. He went and collected all the pieces. This... Oh my gosh. That jade pendant had broken very thoroughly. Afterward, though Yan Xiaohan had found the best craftsman to mend it with gold, there had still been no fixing it. The jade pendant looked rough and bumpy with uneven holes. Compared to the new one Fu Shen had sent, it was more than a little bit worse. But Yan Xiaohan had always kept it carefully, treating it like a treasure. He is so down bad, I agree, Momar's Rover. Oh my goodness. To this day, he could still remember his remorse as he knelt on the ground picking the broken jade piece up. Up piece by piece, his despair when there had been a handful of fragments lying in his palm. He'd found that there was no way to put them back together into a complete form. If not for the superior skill of who had mended it, Yan Xiaohan might have regretted this for the rest of his life. 7 years ago, he had joined the Feilong Guard not long before. He was still young. Criticized and ridiculed daily by the scholar officials, he would have loved to pick up a sword and slaughter all the world's pedants. Different, very different pedants. Because of this, there had been rebellion in his heart. He had no bottom line. The Feilong Guard has always gotten its results by hook or by crook, and Yan Xiaohan had taken his example from them. Whether it had been luck or misfortune, the first case he had been in charge of was the Jin Yunfang case. His first time acting by hook or by crook, he had kicked the iron plate of Fu Shen. For 7 years, the past had been like a shackle clamped around his ankle, and it had acted as an insistent thread of gossamer delineating a clear and deeply carved bottom line for him, keeping Yan Xiaohan from treading fully into the mire and sinking in. This jade pendant that had nearly broken to smithereens and been forced back together seemed to prop up the humble wish that was buried deep at the bottom of his heart, yet unspeakable. That was an apology he owed Fu Shen. I'm sorry. I didn't want to make a clean break with you. The two jade pendants placed side by side in the box, the broken one and the whole one, seemed exceptionally luminous and beautiful in the lantern light, like a silent consolation from the distant north, from the old memories, from a certain person who was always stubborn when it came to speech. Fortunately, he was coming back soon. Oh my gosh, this chapter. Oh, the feelings! There's a little part talking about the 6 etiquettes. The 6 etiquettes are part of the traditional Chinese marriage ceremony. There is a specific reference to the 4th etiquette, gift-giving. Wild geese are a gift that symbolize a marriage proposal. A pair of deerskins is a betrothal gift to the bride, acknowledging the engagement. That's cute. All right. The 12th day of the 2nd month, the flower festival. Oh, chapter 25, by the way. The Marquise of Jinning Manor was decked with lanterns and colored banners full of festive atmosphere. Crimson silk was draped over the lintel and pillars of the gate. Servants shuffled to and fro in the courtyard, making preparations for the upcoming wedding banquet. All of a sudden, a furious roar that surged straight to the heavens sounded over the main hall. Where is he? Why isn't he here yet? An official of the Ministry of Rights, clutching at a Yan Manor servant who had come to help out, the point of collapse, howled, "The Marquise of Jinning hasn't returned yet? Why didn't your master say so before? Traveling a long way. He's probably made a fucking run for it." The Yan Manor servant, head spinning, said, "Your Honor, I don't know either. It's all my master's personal orders to prepare everything as usual." The auspicious time was approaching. The Ministry of Rights official had already lost all hope for this wedding. He had heard long ago that the Marquis of Jinning, Fu Shen's temperament was unyielding, that he wouldn't submit to force. On first hearing that he had tacitly agreed to the Ministry of Rights preparing the wedding, everyone at all levels of the Ministry of Rights had breathed a sigh of relief, not expecting that when it came to the point of getting married, this ancestor would disappear without a sound. Truly a drastic measure in an emergency, a move worthy of a master of the art of war. With matters at this stage, he could only pray for his majesty to be wise and not involve them, the unlucky fish in the pond, when he flew into his rage. The Ministry of Rights official stroked his beard and the two sides of his mustache, took a deep breath, and studied his emotions, planning to go find this wedding's other main character to discuss how they should wind up the event. Casually snatched up the servant he had spoken to before, and forcing a genial expression onto his face, he asked, "Where is your Lord Yan now?" The servant earnestly said, "The master took some people and left the city first thing this morning. He said that he was going to meet the Lord Marquis, Your Honor." "Your Honor! Help! Come quick! An official has fainted here!" Oh, goodness. They're all so dramatic. Oh, my God. Outside the capital at a traveler's pavilion on the public road. The team accompanying the party meeting the bride looked at the sun again and again, their hearts brimming with the same concern as the unfortunate Ministry of Rights official. Trembling with fear, they asked, "Your Honor, the auspicious hour is nearly here. Why haven't we seen a sign of him yet?" They didn't dare to say anything further, afraid lest Yan Xiaohan suddenly pull a sword out from under his wedding clothes. Yan Xiaohan suppressed the fretfulness in his heart and calmly said, "Keep waiting." That "prepare your dowry, do not let me down" still lingered in his ears. The letter sent back from Yanshao City, apart from telling him to await him outside the city on the wedding day, had also contained this ardent exhortation. "Paper is scant and feelings are plentiful. I will say no more. Do not renege, do not forget." Yan Xiaohan was unwilling to suspect Fu Shen, and he was even more unwilling to suspect that what he had said was a pretense laid down to cover up a snare. But in fact, inwardly, he was more frightened than anyone, because the scene of a chill at heart, a knife to the back, had happened between him and Fu Shen 7 years ago. Just as Yan Xiaohan was incessantly struggling between sinking into self-scaring and rising into self-consolation, nearly drowned, a small dark speck, suddenly appeared in the distance. A fast horse came racing from the distance. On the horse was a dark-skinned teenager. Before he came close, he turned his horse's head around several yards away and cried loudly, "Lord Yan, please follow me. The general will arrive shortly." Probably not that sassily, sorry. Yan Xiaohan's breathing instantly eased. The boulder in his chest landed. He spurred on his horse and galloped away after the teenager. Before the others could react, the two of them had already raced far away. Ordinary horses couldn't compare to the Beiyuan army's horses. Once they began to run, only Yan Xiaohan could just barely keep up. Toward the end, the team had fallen out of formation. The two of them were up ahead in first place, while behind them followed the ragtag jumble of the defeated tail. The teenager led him west the whole way. When the vague outline of a building appeared in the distance, Yan Xiaohan suddenly understood why, on an important a day as today, Fu Shen would put forward a request that seemed nonsensical and willful. That high terrace rose from the ground level. Its halls were lofty. The setting sun slanting onto its glazed tiles caused layer upon layer of brilliant, beautiful golden light to emerge. The Golden Terrace! Surveying it from a distance, it seemed to be built of gold. Therefore, it was named Golden Terrace. Name drop! There had been a Golden Terrace in ancient times. King Zhao of Yan, from veneration for Gu Guo Wei, his teacher, had constructed a palace in his honor and placed 1,000 pieces of gold on the terrace in order to invite all the talented individuals in the kingdom, thus giving it its name. When Great Zhao was founded, the ancestor of the dynasty, wishing to imitate King Zhao of Yan, had raised a high terrace in the capital's outskirts and erected a palace on it. The terrace was named Golden, the palace was named Chinlin. In the main hall of the palace were hung 18 portraits of meritorious subjects. Meritorious. It's even more meritorious subjects who had taken part in the founding of the dynasty, in order to make clear their merit. Later emperors had all adhered to this method. Among successive generations of civilian officials and military officers, all of them had had members whose images were entered into Golden Terrace's Chinlin Palace to celebrate their glory. By the time of the late emperor, every time the army went out on campaign, it made a pledge on the terrace. Over time, this had also become convention. 6 years ago, when Fu Shen put on armor and went out on campaign for the first time, Emperor Yun Tai had personally led all the officials to Golden Terrace to see him off. Half a year later, when he had returned victorious, he had been conferred the title of Marquis of Jinning on Golden Terrace. Still later, Fu Shen's legs were crippled and he no longer commanded soldiers. An imperial edict had been bestowed on him, an absurd marriage, and he still chose for it to happen at the starting point of all the honor and disgrace in his life. Through dusty journeys, through blood and tears, through lofty rises and steep falls, all his life could be summarized with these lines: "To requite my king's trust at Golden Terrace, I will raise my sword and die for my king." This was his silent display of prowess, and also his profound eternal regret. The setting sun was like a blaze, lighting up the whole countryside. At last came the sound of hoofbeats in the distance, clouds of billowing dust as a majestic team appeared at the end of the road. The lead rider was tall and upright, his posture vigorous, urging on his horse to gallop with the force of wind and thunder. His crimson robes fluttered and flew, reflecting the sunset glow, suffusing the sky as if he were bathed in flames, coming trampling through blood. Red robes and an untamed horse, a ferocious approach. He didn't seem to be coming to be married so much as coming to kidnap a bride. That was Fu Shen. Only this could be Fu Shen. The instant he appeared, it was as if a heavy hammer had struck Yan Xiaohan over the heart. He could even distinctly feel his throat choked with emotion, the rims of his eyes heating up. For months, he hadn't comforted Fu Shen, hadn't dared to touch his scars, and had often consoled himself. Fu Shen is only unable to go into battle again, or walk on his own like an ordinary person. He only paid with a pair of legs, much better than losing his life in the Kingshaw Gap. But in this moment, his unreasoning reaction at last acknowledged for him that his sanguinity and ease were both false. In fact, he was unreconciled. In fact, he regretted it deeply. Fu Shen was still so young, and in the future he would have to live with a wheelchair as his companion, be an ordinary person who had difficulty walking. The dashing young youth riding into the city and enticing countless girls to throw flowers and fruit. The young general who had led his troops out on campaign, galloping off light as air, even the Marquis of Jinning, regularly guarding the border passes and returning once in a while to the capital to squabble with him. None of those would exist again. But today, that youth who had brushed past him urging on his horse had come back. In the space of a few breaths, the team of riders had arrived in front of him. Fu Shen slowed, blew a whistle, and raised his hand to fling out a length of red silk. Yan Xiaohan automatically caught one end. From the other end came a strong tug, and his body leaned forward in response. His legs clamped around his horse's belly, and his fine steed trotted off in Fu Shen's direction. Gosh, this is so, like, beautiful. Like, this is so cool. He's got such riz. Like, I feel strange saying that about an ancient cultivation thing, but, like, oh my gosh. He is a slick motherfucker. To all appearances, it was as if the Marquis of Jinning had fished him up with a length of red silk. Fu Shen was very satisfied with Yan Xiaohan's obedience and cooperation. Smiling brightly, he drew near. You've been waiting a long time. Hey, why are you crying? He saw the traces of red in Yan Xiaohan's eyes at a glance and was startled. Involuntarily, he lowered his voice and his tone softened as well. Yan Xiaoing. Yan Xiang. What's the matter? Did you get anxious waiting? Were you scared I wouldn't come? Yan Xiaohan looked at him expressionlessly. Only when Fu Shen was bristling from his stare did he turn his head away and, unable to suppress it, laugh aloud. The wind got in my eye. Fu Shen pointed at him. Since we're getting married today, I'll leave you some face. If it happens again, I'll give you something to cry about. You believe that? Fu Shen had come at just the right time. The sun was sinking into the west. Dusk had come. It was precisely the auspicious time to carry out the marriage ceremony. Fu Shen dismounted his horse. Yan Xiaohan lifted him onto his back. Stepping on over the sunset glow, he walked step by step up dignified and splendid Golden Terrace. All of a sudden, time drew out infinitely long. Walking up 72 white marble steps was as solemn as if he had walked to the end of an entire lifetime. Qinling Palace was lofty and vast. The long passage of time had given it a sense of archaic dimness. Few people set foot here. It was very still. Only the life-size portraits hanging all over the walls regarded them, stern and august, like all the gods and Buddhas of heaven silently regarding two mortals who had wandered by mistake into a divine palace. Without needing Fu Shen's guidance, Yan Xiaohan had already found the portraits of Fu Jian and his sons Fu Tingxiang and Fu Tingxin hanging in a row. An attendant followed behind them, silently provided 2 cushions. Yan Xiaohan took a casual glance at that person and found to his surprise that this was one of Beiyuan's high generals, Yu Qiaoting. Fu Shen softly said, "Put me down." The 2 of them knelt side by side on the cushions. Yu Qiaoting took out a wine pouch and 2 small silver bowls. He put them in front of the 2 of them, then noiselessly withdrew. Fu Shen said, "Here are my late grandfather, my late father, and my late uncle. My late mother is buried in her hometown. I will take you to pay respects to her another day." He changed direction, facing south, and said, "Come on, first bow to heaven and earth." The 2 of them bowed in unison. They turned again towards the portraits. Fu Shen raised the wine and poured it out in libation. He prayed to the emptiness. Your unworthy son Fu Shen has had a marriage bestowed upon him by the emperor, and today joins in conjugal union with Yan Xiaohan, grandfather, father, second uncle. If you can hear me in the underworld, you may rest in peace. Second bow to parents. Yan Xiaohan silently bowed with him. The two of them turned again, now kneeling face to face. Fu Shen poured 2 cups of wine and passed one of them to Yan Xiaohan. He said, Yan Xiang, thank you for being willing to wait here for me today. Yan Xiaohan said, no need for thanks. It's just what I ought to do. Fu Shen said, after my late grandfather died of illness, the late emperor issued an order for a portrait of him to be placed in Qinling Palace. After his death, it was my late father who carried his portrait up Golden Terrace. In the 19th and 20th years of Yuantai, my late father and late uncle departed into the west. Their portraits were brought into Qinling Palace by me. At the time, His Highness Prince Su wanted to be the one to bring my second uncle's portrait to the palace. Sadly, he shook his head and said, according to regulations, after the death of a worthy minister, only close kin can carry his portrait into the palace. His Highness Prince Su's love was always deep, but in the end he lacked the formal status. Picking up on subtext, I think they may have also been cut sleeves right there. Like I got hints of that when they were talking earlier about the close friendship. But I think Prince Su and his uncle were down bad, if we're putting it that way. I went to war at 18. I have commanded the Beiyuan cavalry for more than 5 years. I don't dare to speak irresponsibly and say I have made a brilliant career, but my conscience is clear before heaven, earth, and man. Sadly, fate is capricious. In the future, I am afraid it will be difficult for me to lead troops again. For me, the army life ends here. He raised his bowl of wine and clanked it against the bowl in Yan Xiaohan's hand. Before I went out on campaign back then, you made a wish, hoping that I would hate you for the rest of my life. Now that wish has failed to come true. I no longer hate you, Yan Xiang. Now it ought to be my turn to make a wish. Yan Xiaohan's eyelids were lowered, watching him tenderly. It was as if, at another word from Fu Shen, he could immediately leap to his feet and pluck the stars and moon for him. Fu Shen, regarding him, slowly and solemnly said, I hope that after I die, I will also be able to leave my image behind in Qinling Palace. And when that time comes, you will be the one to carry it up Golden Terrace. Following a worthy minister's death, only close kin could carry their portrait into the palace. There was a long silence. Yan Xiaohan made no comment, only said, on a festive day like this, why speak such inauspicious words? Everyone must die one day. There is no need to avoid speaking of it. Fu Shen didn't seem the least anxious about his answer, but the look in his eye was sharp and earnest. The sun and moon are the highest, yet the brightest. Husband and wife are the closest, yet the most distant. If you will promise, henceforth, you will be my sole close kin. This world was capricious. Fate toyed with people. 2 people with a gulf as vast as the one between heaven and earth between them had at last, by 2 forking roads, reached one and the same turning point. This wish was practically tantamount to, may we be together to a ripe old age. How could Yan Xiaohan refuse him? He took the wine cup from Fu Shen's hand, put it aside, and clasped both of his hands. Husband and wife bow to each other. The 2 of them each leaned down and bowed solemnly. Because they were extremely close, they nearly brushed the tops of each other's heads, but their hands remained clasped, throughout. Dimly, some nameless tie seemed to connect, like the unerring fastening of a buckle at the bottoms of their hearts, letting out a crisp clink. With those 3 bows, they were married. Damn, that was good writing. Like, they had all this preparation for a fancy wedding back there, and they go to a place of actual significance to them and have their wedding just with themselves and their army dudes. That is amazing. Hot. Oh. I think I actually need just some plain water because that stuff is still burning. Oh. Seriously, though. What a wedding! Chapter 26. Twilight climbed over the window lattices. Daylight faded. The yellowing painting scrolls on the wall disappeared in the boundless dimness. Yan Xiaohan and Fu Shen exchanged cups and drank together, completing the final stage of the ceremony. They made another profound bow to the portraits of the Fu family seniors, then turned and descended Golden Terrace. This marriage ceremony had been solemn and sorrowful, coloring the originally not very cheerful atmosphere with an even deeper gloom. Yan Xiaohan put Fu Shen on his horse's back. Wanting to ease the atmosphere, he said, "Now we should return to the Marquis's manor. Having bowed to heaven and earth, we ought to bow and give thanks for imperial kindness. With you and I both running off without a trace, the officials from the Ministry of Rights must be ready to strangle us both to death." Fu Shen indolently said, "Let them come. I can take down 10 one-handed." The Beiyuan cavalrymen who had come to attend the ceremony were watching avidly. They roared with laughter. Yan Xiaohan, helpless, shook his head, laughing. He leapt onto his horse and rode abreast of Fu Shen. The party to meet the bride joined with the Beiyuan army into a single team, a large crowd of men and horses, which raced off grandly in the direction of the capital. The whole capital city knew that Yan Xiaohan and Fu Shen were getting married today. Many people were keeping their heads up on the lookout, or had even run out into the street to watch the fun. They had waited from daybreak to sundown without seeing any activity and were as frantic as ants on a hot pan. Commentary came in droves. Emperor Yuntai was waiting for news at the palace, having already dispatched people to ask at the Marquis's manor 3 times. The official from the Ministry of Rights had fallen into a stupor from anger and worry, fainting twice. No matter what anyone said, he refused to take part anymore, insisting on retiring and returning to his hometown. He was like, "I'm out. Bye." Just as the Marquis's manor and the palace were ready to turn into a mess, the north city gate suddenly opened wide, and 2 riders in bright scarlet robes galloped out of the long, deep shadow of the city gate tower, like 2 last fierce flames bursting forth from the sun, just about to sink beneath the horizon, sleeves and hems swirling in the wind, fluttering in an instant through the twilight-shrouded, dusty-old street. I do too. I kind of love the dramatic wedding official as well. He's like, "It's bullshit. I'm gone. I'm not staying for the emperor to get mad at me." Like, oh, damn it. Yeah. I mean, all these men are so dramatic. Utterly easy and unchecked, utterly elegant and glad. A cheer burst from the crowd. Without knowing who had started it, the people raised lanterns and walked out onto the streets, lamp after lamp, hundreds upon thousands, gradually forming a bright and radiant river, making the stars above fade. When the two riders passed, countless people threw red flowers, shouting in chorus, "Congratulations on your marriage, Commander Fu! Best wishes for your happiness, General! Peace and health to the Lord Marquis! Endless good fortune!" Scarlet flowers fell like rain. Cheers came in, wave after wave, until in the end it turned unexpectedly into revelry throughout the whole city. It wasn't only Fu Shen. Even Yan Xiaohan himself hadn't expected so big a spectacle. A heart riddled with wounds was carefully lifted from the ice and snow. The feeling of that moment was hard to describe. Fu Shen was visibly moved at once. From Yan Xiaohan's point of view, it even seemed that the glitter of tears shone in his eyes. Their steed slowed, and the party at last stopped at the end of the Chunhe Bridge. On the bridge and under it were people holding bright lanterns, like myriad fireflies glowing in a vast night. Fu Shen sat upright on his horse, straightened his clothes and hair, and then solemnly and silently saluted all the observers in the street. There were thousands and upon thousands of words in his heart, but he only spoke one sentence, each word resounding. "I am unworthy." His voice was hoarse from the emotion choking it. The exploits of 3 generations of the Fu family were recorded in the annals of history, inscribed on tablets of stone, spoken of by tens of thousands. Fu Shen had heard enough flattering phrases that his ears had grown calluses. He had once been proud and satisfied, immeasurably complacent. When the emperor had tried to get rid of him as soon as he had outlived his usefulness, he had known rage and resentment, had felt that his claims to credit were great, that they merited the nation's profound gratitude towards him. But when he truly learned the meaning of the support of the people, he restrained all his arrogance, only felt apprehensive and ashamed, as insignificant as a speck of dust between heaven and earth. The foreign enemies were not yet pacified, the empire was not yet stable. What had he, Fu Shen, done to be worthy of being thanked and remembered by so many people? Others didn't understand, but he himself knew well that a large part of his willingness to bear responsibility was that he was a member of the Fu family and couldn't ruin his forebear's reputation. Another small part was that he was obstinate and refused to admit defeat. That even with 1,000-pound weight over his shoulders, he would still grit his teeth and try to lift it. As for morality, that in fact made up only a very small bit, out of step with its surroundings. He had to keep guard beside it, alone, at length, like a person protecting a candle flame to keep it from being extinguished in a moment of carelessness by the wind and rain. But tonight, he had suddenly discovered that, after all, he wasn't alone in obstinately guarding that lantern. Myriad lantern flames combined, voice upon voice speaking prayers, flowers falling like rain. He seemed to have suddenly found the courage and faith to continue along this endless road. A warm, strong hand fell on Fu Shen's shoulder and squeezed it comfortingly. It was as if he had leaned back against a solid wall. Yan Xiaohan drew near to him and softly said, "It's getting late. Let's go." Fu Shen nodded unconsciously, then suddenly raised a hand and caught something, which he casually tucked into his lapel. Before Yan Xiaohan could react, Fu Shen had pulled up the reins and continued to urge his horse forward. A delicate fragrance spread outward. Yan Xiaohan looked down and abruptly froze. This was a twin lotus. Do you guys remember the significance? The flower, they threw one back and forth. So much symbolism in this book. I kind of love it. The Marquise of Jinning Manor. Everyone had been looking out 1,000, 10,000 times, awaiting with bated breath, and had finally seen these two living ancestors return. When the Ministry of Rights official first saw Fushen riding a horse, he was startled and nearly blurted out, "Lord Marquise, aren't you lame?" Fortunately, the next moment, Yan Xiaohan himself took Fushen into his arms and placed him in a wheelchair. Only then did he realize that Fushen hadn't recovered. He had just held out by force of will the whole way. A hero in dire straits, the passage of glory. The final persistence of the crippled general touched one with admiration and made one sigh with regret. Because of this delicate sympathy, the bellyful of anger he was holding dispersed somewhat. He didn't explode at the two of them, only cupped his hands towards them and congratulated the newlyweds on their marriage. Then hastening, he said, "Come in quick, gentlemen. The Duke of Ying and your honored mother are waiting to receive your bows to the parents." I have a feeling there's about to be some drama. The position of the Phelan Guard was special. They were in the habit of disregarding civilian officials. Yan Xiaohan only gave a tepid assent, his thoughts all on looking after Fushen. Fushen thanked the official for his hard work, then gently pushed aside Yan Xiaohan, who was pushing the wheelchair, and quietly said, "No need for you to do it. Let Qing Heng and the others take care of it." From the gate to the main hall, a long red carpet was spread out. Fushen and Yan Xiaohan each held one end of a piece of red silk. Yu Qiaoting pushed the wheelchair into the hall prepared for the wedding banquet. The whole room was brightly lit, with dragon and phoenix wedding candles lit everywhere. The guests stood one after another to congratulate them. Madame Qin was luxuriously dressed in brocades, high above on one side of the host's table, while the other side was empty. The Duke of Ying Fu Tingyi was sitting in the next seat down. Hearing them enter, he raised his eyes slightly and met Fushen's gaze, blank-faced. Madame Qin had waited bitterly for several hours and had long ago lost her patience. Had she been at home, she would have likely been let loose with earth-shaking curses by now. But today's wedding banquet was being held at the Marquise of Jinning's manor, and those who had come were all of the Fu family's old friends and colleagues. She had to grit her teeth and put on a composed and virtuous appearance, whether she liked it or not, to avoid damaging her reputation in front of these high officials and eminent personages. However, as soon as she saw Fushen and Yan Xiaohan, she instantly couldn't resist laughing. Before, she and her children lived cowering in Fushen's shadow, with the whole Duke of Ying's manner attitude of, "We only listen to the eldest gentleman, not the younger gentleman." But now the wheel had turned. However presumptuous and arrogant Fushen might be, what did it matter? In the end, he was still going to be married off to a man. He still had to swallow the knocked-out teeth and blood and respectfully kowtow to her, the Duke's lady. Truly, this child doesn't spare a person from worry. How could you be late on the day of your wedding? And you've missed the auspicious time, made so many people wait for you for 2 hours for no reason. Madame Qin hadn't even left her chair. In an affected manner, she enumerated Fushen's faults. It was one thing when you were running wild at home, but in the future when you're married, you can't keep being so willful. Saying so, she turned to Yan Xiaohan and warmly said, "Mengue, Jing Yuan is a spoiled child. If you find him improper in any way, I hope you'll bear with him." The speech was nauseating. Dead silence fell over the whole hall. You could have heard a pin drop. Everyone present knew about the Duke of Ying's little family drama. Without prearrangement, everyone sat up straight and pricked up their ears, having a premonition that there was about to be a great show. "Oh, I bet there is." Fu Shen's face instantly darkened. He was just about to explode when someone took hold of his shoulder and pressed down lightly, indicating for him not to move. Yan Xiaohan's voice sounded above his head as he unhurriedly said, "Well said. If I don't bear with him, who will?" These words of his sounded a little like ridicule. Linking cause and effect, everyone present thought he was dissatisfied with this forced marriage. Only Fu Shen heard a trace of veiled, subdued, foolish bragging and possessiveness. The anger in his chest instantly died out, the corners of his mouth indistinctly turned up. Under the strength of Yan Xiaohan's pressure on his shoulder, he relaxed his shoulders and prepared to focus on watching the show. If not for the fact that the circumstances didn't permit it, he would have even crossed one leg over the other. Madame Qin was evidently very satisfied with Yan Xiaohan. She matter-of-factly believed that Yan Xiaohan detested Fu Shen. The enemy of my enemy is my friend. He would certainly stand on the same battle line as her. With an affable and magnanimous smile, she said, "Don't keep standing. Hurry up and bow to the parents. We can't hold up you two performing the ceremony." Hardly had she spoken than Yan Xiaohan suddenly interrupted her. "Wait a moment. What's the matter?" Yan Xiaohan said, "Jing Yuan's parents are already dead. The two of us ought to bow to their memorial tablets. Why do I not see the tablets in the wedding hall?" Madame Qin froze. "Well," Yan Xiaohan continued, "and where did you crop up from, daring to snatch the host's table and receive mine and Jing Yuan's bows? Aren't you afraid of shortening your lifespan?" Fu Shen, listening, wanted to applaud him. Madame Qin's face turned from red to white and then to green. Her lips and the hands beneath her wide sleeves trembled incessantly. She had never expected that Yan Xiaohan would suddenly attack her. She wanted to retort, but she was scared into keeping silent by the smiling, murderous look he sent her way. This was a true Feilong guard. Yeah, dude, he's the head of the Feilong guard. What did you expect? Before she could answer, Yan Xiaohan, seemingly already fed up with wasted words on her, coldly said, "Men, drag her out." As soon as he gave the order, two Feilong guards immediately stood up out of the crowd. With movements as quick as if they had been rehearsed, they grabbed Madame Qin's arms and pulled her down from the host table, then dragged her towards the gate. Madame Qin finally came back to herself in her panic. She struggled wildly and screamed, but when she had only screamed 2 words, she was gagged by the efficient Feilong guards. Sounds faded gradually into the distance. Dead silence was restored in the wedding hall. All the guests were expressionless, though inwardly filled with terror. This was conduct worthy of the infamous Feilong guard, too arrogant. Misfortunes came quickly, and resolutions were also quick. In a flash, the dust had settled. When Madame Qin had been dragged far away, Fu Ya finally started, as if waking from a dream. He hopped up and charged up in front of Yan Xiaohan. Furiously, he said, "Shameless ruffian, you dare to humiliate my mother!" He raised his fist, ready to punch him, but Yan Xiaohan sent him flying several feet away with a single kick. Only after kicking him did he ask, "And who's this?" Fu Shen was about to die of laughter. Not everyone at the feast was purely watching the fun. There were just a couple of kind-hearted people who, seeing that Fu Ya still couldn't get up after being kicked by Yan Xiaohan, fearfully soothed, "That's the Fu family's little young master, the Lord Marquis's little brother. His birth mother is, that Madame Jin just now. A great man can afford to be broad-minded. Do not squabble with the child." Yan Xiaohan gave an "oh" and said in astonishment, "I have only ever heard of young Master Fu, not of little young Master Fu. So he's Jing Yuan's half-brother by another mother. It was a misunderstanding." On his end, just as Fu Ya caught his breath with difficulty, he heard Yan Xiaohan hypocritically call this a misunderstanding. He nearly spat blood. He was ashamed and angry. His eyes burned red. He felt around behind himself for something he had knocked down, and without so much as looking at it, threw it, loudly swearing, "That's fucking bullshit you're talking." His aim wasn't very accurate. This hidden weapon didn't fly towards Yan Xiaohan, but flew towards Fu Shen instead, where it was easily caught by him and brought up in front of his eyes. It was half of a broken porcelain bowl. Yan Xiaohan was still wrangling, unwilling to let him off. Little young Master Fu's mouth is really too filthy. His education has been inadequate. Halfway through, he looked down and saw the bowl in Fu Shen's hand. When his gaze fell on the cold light on the broken edge, his expression instantly darkened. Murderous anger soared several feet over his head. Grimly grinding his teeth, he said, "You actually dared to use this kind of sharp object to try to kill your own older brother. Truly monstrous audacity." Everyone's hearts were simply about to beat their way out of their chest and throw themselves at Yan Xiaohan's face. "You're lying through your teeth. The boy didn't want to kill his big brother. He wanted to justly and honestly hit you." Even when it came to confounding white and black, there still had to be limits. Fu Shen covered his mouth with his hand. Holding back laughter, he gave a few stilted coughs. As if only now remembering that such a person as him existed, Yan Xiaohan bent down and urged him, "Don't get angry. A wedding day isn't suitable for creating disturbances, but since we have been wed and a husband and wife are one, as movement is inconvenient for you, I cannot avoid taking matters into my own hands and disciplining this disrespectful, mean-tongued little brother for you. I don't suppose the Lord Marquis minds." His tone was profoundly tender, but the menace in his words was immediately evident. The game had to be played up to the hilt. Fu Shen's expression became troubled. "No," Yan Xiaohan mildly said. "The Feilong Guard know their business. There won't be blood. They'll just teach him a little lesson to keep it from happening again." Fu Shen hesitated briefly, then said in frustration, "Then let's do as you say." Yan Xiaohan straightened up in satisfaction and turned to the Feilong guards, who had stood awaiting orders. "Did you hear what the Lord Marquis said? Take little young Master Fu away. Give him a few light smacks with a plank, just enough for him to understand his error and repent." The court officials, familiar with the Feilong Guard's methods, couldn't resist shuddering. Their eyes were full of sympathy as they looked at Fu Ya. Beating him until he understood his error meant that they wouldn't stop, would beat him to death. The ruthless Feilong Guard picked up Fu Ya and dragged him away. A perfectly nice wedding banquet had been turned into a series of unexpected disturbances, making people feel that it would be a torment to continue sitting there. And worst off of all was the Marquis of Jinning Fu Shen, because the savage and premonitory Feilong Guard Imperial investigator was still unwilling to stop. Yan Xiaohan made clear his intentions, complaining with deep feeling, "It's true that every family has its problems. We only just have been married, and already there's this heap of vexations to deal with. I don't know how much they'll plague us in the future." The Feilong Guard ordinarily brought about miscarriages of justice and the imprisonment of the innocent. When it came to abusing a loyal and upright person, their tricks multiplied exponentially. Yan Xiaohan was something else. After dealing with these two people, he went over to brag and petition for a reward, giving all kinds of "praise me now" hints. Fu Shen fixed his eyes on him with a not quite smile. His heart softened uncontrollably. Softly he said, "You've been to quite a lot of trouble, my good wife." Yan Xiaohan's gaze suddenly deepened and stilled. Ooh, he likes that. He likes it. Fu Shen had no idea of the consequences his casual teasing would incur. Not long after, the turbulent events of the wedding banquet at the Marquis of Jinning Manor spread rapidly through the streets, passed from mouth to mouth, and were touched up with speculation, and finally became the accursed Feilong guard right in front of the Marquis of Jinning's face, insulted his mother, beat his little brother, and finally forced him to praise him for his virtues. Too arrogant, utterly shameless. The court's dog was once again abusing a loyal and upright person. Oh, but more about the aftermath later. When the present drama had broken up, the wedding banquet on the agenda still had to continue. After seeing, right? I like that they both call each other the wife. They both are like, "You are so the bottom. No, you're the bottom. You are the wife." I cannot wait to see which one of them, if one of them actually becomes the wife in the relationship, or like decides like, all right, fine, I'm the wife. I kind of want it to be Fu Shen. I do. I kind of want Fu Shen to be the wife. But I'm kind of totally okay with it being Yan Xiaohan, especially with that reaction right there. But more about the aftermath later. When the present drama had broken up, the wedding banquet on the agenda still had to continue. After seeing off Madame Qin and her son, everyone's gaze turned in unison upon the sole person on the stage still in good condition, the Duke of Ying Fu Tingyi. Unlike his father and two older brothers, Fu Tingyi had been frail since childhood, without the makings to study military arts. Every day he only shut himself up in his room and studied. He had no sense of presence and wasn't very close to anyone in his family. Later, his brothers had died one after the other, and when the Duke of Ying Manor had urgently required someone to come out to assume responsibility, the majority of the pressure had been lifted by Fu Shen leading troops beyond the pass. Only then had Fu Tingyi stood up unhurriedly and inherited the title. After the Duke of Ying Manor and the Marquis of Jinning Manor split, the virtually invisible Duke's life had become even more secluded. It was said that he was obsessed with cultivating immortality and alchemical concoctions, declining daily along with the Duke of Ying Manor. Because of the outstanding people who had come before him in the family, the commentary in the streets concerning this third master seemed far harsher. Everyone said Fu Tingyi had no good qualities and relied entirely on a lucky reincarnation. Purely for plugging a leak, he was set for life. Wasn't he currently seeking immortality and practicing Taoism? Perhaps one day, while plugging the leak, he would ascend to heaven right in broad daylight. Whatever Madame Qin did, Fu Shen had always maintained his respect for this third uncle. Whether he really had no interest in everyday matters or was deliberately hiding his abilities and biding his time, the Duke of Ying Manor had been so subdued in recent years that Fu Shen's rear had been stable, sparing him a good deal of misgiving. He indicated for Yan Xiaohan to push him in front of Fu Tingyi and raised his hands to salute. He said, "Third uncle." On his nephew's wedding day, Fu Tingyi was actually still dressed in Taoist robes. In recent years, he had often fasted and kept a vegetarian diet. His appearance was lean, with a long strand of beard beneath his chin. He really did seem to have something of the bearing of a transcendent being. Such a great disturbance had taken place, yet he hadn't made a sound throughout, watching without seeming to see, resting his eyes while silently reciting Taoist scriptures. Not until Fu Shen called to him did he slightly open his eyes. Fu Tingyi's eyes were deep and radiant, his tone of voice misty. "No need to bow to me. Your parents' memorial tablets are both in the ancestral hall at home. If you wish, you may go yourself to pay your respects." It was unclear whom these words were addressed to. He didn't wait for a response. Acting for himself, he stood, swept his sleeves, and floated off. This time, even the Feilong guard looked at Fu Shen with sympathy in their eyes. Their imperial investigator had lost both his parents at a young age and had no family, which was already tragic enough. But the Marquise of Jinning's family was better to have none. Luckily, Fu Shen didn't care at all. He and Yan Xiaohan had already paid their respects to their elders on Golden Terrace. The remainder was no cause for anxiety. It was just as well that they had all left. He had wanted to leave long ago. That's a little sad. All right. Chapter 27. The wedding banquet continued late into the night. When they had seen off the last group of guests, Yan Xiaohan said to Fu Shen, "We'll leave it to the servants to clean up here. Come stay at my manor for now." He presumed that Fu Shen would have no sentimental attachment to the Marquis's manor and wouldn't refuse the invitation. But Fu Shen briefly muttered to himself, then actually refused. "No need. I ought to have mentioned it to you before, but when things got busy, I forgot. After getting married, I was planning to move to a country estate outside the city to recuperate. I'll write down the address for you in a little while. If you need anything, you can go there to see me." Yan Xiaohan's pupils contracted slightly, but his voice was still calm. "Living apart right after getting married? Is it because I failed to be an attentive host before?" "It's no such thing. Don't be oversensitive." Fu Shen tilted his head and glanced out the door out of the corner of his eye. Quietly, he said, "I have a group of Beiyuan soldiers with me. How would it look if they all came to stay at your manor?" Only then did Yan Xiaohan relax very slightly and feel less choked, but profound regret appeared in his eyes. "You can't even stay for one night?" Fu Shen's little heart wavered, softening nearly to the point of melting away. Smiling, he asked, "So reluctant to give me up?" The two of them were whispering to each other in the bridal chamber, with red candles burning high, one deliberately tempting, one with a mind to yield. This was plainly an ordinary conversation, but the atmosphere was still unbearably enchanting. Yan Xiaohan said, "I prepared some things. I thought that when you got back, you might be able to use them. But it now seems that it was superfluous of me." Though I knew perfectly well that he could only believe half of what came out of Yan Xiaohan's mouth, and the better part of his seemingly genuine loneliness and melancholy were play acting, Fu Shen still couldn't resist compromising. "How can kind intentions be called superfluous?" He squeezed Yan Xiaohan's hand and sincerely said, "I was wrong not to tell you in advance. That being the case, I'll thank you for your hospitality tonight." Yan Xiaohan dropped his gaze, looked looking at the hand he was holding, and agreed. That is all I could wish for. When he saw the scarlet lanterns hanging from Yan Manor's gate, Fushen at last woke from his disoriented state and felt that Yan Xiaohan might have been a child abductor before joining the Feilong Guard. Probably General Fu himself hadn't expected that after so many years of firm and unyielding will, he would submit so smoothly without so much as a stutter. He and the wheelchair were placed beneath the eaves facing the courtyard. Yan Xiaohan walked forward slowly, pushing him. When the two of them reached the central building, they didn't stop. Fushen was about to warn him of the steps up ahead when he felt the wheelchair glide down a slope, smooth and uninterrupted. Fushen's heart trembled fiercely. He had at last discovered how this house was different from before. All the places with steps had been flattened, turned into gentle slopes. The thresholds, meanwhile, had all been taken down, leaving only an expanse of level floor. It was evident at a glance that this was specially designed for a person in the house who couldn't walk well and relied on a wheelchair. For the average person with a cripple in the house, just taking care of them would exhaust their mental and physical efforts. Very few people were willing to put in a great deal of work to convert the inconvenient steps and thresholds. But Yan Xiaohan, knowing perfectly well that their marriage was only for appearances and that Fushen wouldn't live here long term, had still silently altered the whole house. All human hearts were flesh. To say that he was unmoved would be a lie. That just... I love these two, so much. They deserve good things. Though they had bowed to the parents, made a promise, Fushen and Yan Xiaohan had just taken the first step of sincerity. There were still countless secrets and disagreements separating them. Neither could clearly say just what there was between them. Too many things were mixed into these feelings. And that bit of interest, that bit of affection, were like drops in the sea, seemingly negligible. It is really sweet, I agree, Chichikiki. Could negligible emotions be brought to this degree? Unlike the bombastic decorations of the Marquise of Jinning Manor, Yan Manor had evidently been put in order with painstaking efforts, everything exquisite, both gorgeous and quiet. Fushen even saw some potted orchids in the rooms, and involuntarily recalled his discovery in the town of Beiyuan. With a pretense of carelessness, he asked, "After all these years, Yan Xiang still likes orchids?" Yan Xiaohan's hands tightened unconsciously on the wheelchair. Then he calmly said, "If we weren't pressed for time, I would have prepared you a pool of twin lotuses." These words hit Fushen precisely in his heart of hearts. For a time, he didn't respond. Yan Xiaohan seemed to be taking him around on a tour. He pushed the wheelchair through one building after another, through the corridors, and finally stopped outside a small room very close to the bedroom. Fushen remembered this place. This was the bathing room. "Are we going in?" Fushen raised his head and asked him. "What's there to look at in the bathing room? Wasn't it just a screen and some tubs?" Yan Xiaohan opened the door. At the door stood a large jade screen with a design of mountains and rivers. Go around it, and behind was a scene of unearthly beauty. A number of rooms had been opened up, connected into a single bright and spacious big room. The room was empty, with no other furnishings than a big bathtub made of jade steps in the center of the floor. The water hadn't been heated and was only half a pool of clear water in it, so clear you could see the bottom. In the candlelight and crystalline reflections of the water, carvings of lotuses and lifelike swimming fish could be faintly seen at the bottom of the pool. this. Yan Xiaohan pushed Fu Shen inside and explained. You can't walk. With no one to support you, it'd be easy for you to trip and fall. So I had this pool installed here. I don't know whether it is to the Lord Marquis' liking. Fu Shen had been slammed by one after another of his surprises until he couldn't quite come back to his senses. Before he could completely understand the meaning of this bathing pool, Yan Xiaohan walked in front of him from behind, knelt down to bring his line of sight level with Fu Shen's. With his hands on his knees, he earnestly said, Jing Yuan, I've repaired the courtyard, planted the Wu-Tong tree, and now I'm only waiting for the phoenix to come. The phoenix, that had not only not come but was planning to fly elsewhere, was speechless. He suddenly wanted to ask Yan Xiaohan, Do you know the saying, Lord Yi's love of dragons? How can you be certain that I'm the phoenix you want? But the smooth steps, the enormous bathing pool, and the sincerity in his eyes, none of those were false. This won't do, Yan Xiang. Fu Shen leaned forward slightly and tapped the center of his brow with slightly cold, dry tip of his finger. Smiling, he said, If you want to attract a phoenix, you have to sing the phoenix's mating song. Yan Xiaohan raised one long eyebrow and met his eyes thoughtfully. His meaning was very clear. Are you that experienced? Then you sing it. Fu Shen laughed. There was only a single sheet of window paper between them, yet the two of them stopped here by tacit agreement and didn't break through. With a balance this delicate, perhaps only the people within it could get a precise handle on it. Maybe it was that their emotions had not yet reached the depths, were not yet sufficiently accommodating and natural. And maybe it was that these two both had extraordinary patience and could only find a true answer amidst countless clashes and attempts. Because the court did not require that they occupy a bridal chamber, that night the two of them did as before, with Fu Shen in the bedroom and Yan Xiaohan sleeping in a side wing. At some point, this relationship in which the roles of host and guest were reversed had become routine, and everyone throughout Yan Manor viewed it as normal. Their positions had already been fixed, but it was only today that Fu Shen could be said to have legitimately entered the inner chamber. Silent consideration was the deadliest. Fu Shen had already suffered once at Yan Xiaohan's hands in the past. Sadly, he had yet to learn his lesson. Oh, you better not bring some shady shit in here. They're being so sweet. Don't you do it. First thing the next morning, when Yan Manor's two masters were still deeply asleep, there was a knock at the main gate. Yu Qiang-ting was standing outside the gate, his expression grave. Excuse me. I come on pressing business and must see the Lord Marquis at once. The butler invited him to wait briefly in the reception pavilion. Not long after, Yan Xiaohan came out of an inner room pushing Fu Shen. Both their complexions were looking healthful. It seemed they hadn't had a wild night. Ordinarily, Yu Qiao-ting would certainly have teased a bit, but today, as soon as he saw them, without waiting for Fu Shen to ask, Have you eaten? He said to Yan Xiaohan, Lord Yan, I have urgent military business to discuss with the general. Yan Xiaohan was tactful and understanding. He said, If you'll excuse me, then went out to call for the servants to prepare breakfast. Fu Shen said, What happened? Yu Qiao-ting took out a palm-sized wooden box and presented it to him with both hands. I stayed the night at Marquis' Manor. This morning, a servant came to see me and said that while making an inventory of the wedding gifts, he had discovered this item. As soon as Fu Shen saw the falcon totem on the lid, he understood. Something belonging to the Z clan? Yu Qiaoting said, "Look inside, General." The box had no mechanism. Fu Shen pushed aside the latch and lifted the lid. The reek of blood hit him in the face. Frowning, he said, "What the hell is this?" The wooden box was full of pearls, about enough for 2 handfuls, plump and smooth, gently luminous. Though Fu Shen didn't care for precious metals or jewels, because he had spent a long time at the border and regularly inspected the annual tributes, he saw at a glance that each and every one of these pearls seems to be tribute grade. These pearls were produced in the Northeast, the gathering place of the Z clan, and were therefore known as Eastern pearls. They were very valuable. But the Eastern pearls in the box in Fu Shen's hands, which ought to have been milky in color, seemed to have been scooped out of blood. They were tainted all over with molted blood stains, giving them an extremely strange and inauspicious look. Have you discovered who sent this? This thing wasn't frightening, only nauseating. Fu Shen said, "Was there any document along the lines of a calling card?" Yu Qiaoting shook his head. There were too many notes received yesterday. Perhaps there was one, but we wouldn't be able to find it at once. Fu Shen casually replaced the lid and passed the wooden box to Yu Qiaoting. He sneered coldly. Cheap hocus pocus. 800 years later, they're still up to the same old tricks. Don't pay it any mind. I figure that group of numbskulls saw that I was getting married and deliberately sent it to add to my vexation. Go get rid of it. Don't let Yan Xiaohan find out. Sorry. With him as composed as usual, Yu Qiaoting relaxed slightly, but he still felt faintly concerned. He took the box and put it away. Fu Shen said, "Has what I arranged been completed?" Yu Qiaoting said, "Set your mind at ease, General. Will you be leaving for the country today?" Fu Shen muttered silently to himself, worried that if he left now, Yan Xiaohan would be unhappy. But when he considered his later arrangements, he knew he had to leave whether he wanted to or not. Finally, he nodded. "Prepare things. I'll go over there today." Here, the two from Beiyuan weren't to be interrupted, and elsewhere, Yan Xiaohan didn't get to eat his breakfast. Not long after Yu Qiaoting came in, a scout from the Phelan Guard also hurriedly came to the door. "Your Honor, last night a headless corpse was dredged from a well in Dongwang village in Zhuoning County. The case was reported to officials in Shuntian Prefecture. The body underwent identification. It has already been confirmed that it belonged to General Mu Baxiu of the Right Jinwu Guard, who recently disappeared. That was rough, but I think I did okay with the names. Half a month earlier, at the time of the new year, the Right Jinwu Guard General Mu Baxiu had suddenly disappeared without a trace. His departure had been sudden, but also hadn't seemed to be entirely without preparation. He had taken nothing that could indicate his identity. He had only carried away some old clothes and some money and possessions. His family had even thought he had gone out eating and drinking with his colleagues. Only when he didn't return after several days did they come weeping to report to the authorities. At the outset, this case hadn't attracted any notice. It had only been investigated by the local authorities in Shuntian Prefecture. Because the matter involved a court official, the case had also been reported to the Feilong Guard. It had passed before Yan Xiaohan's eyes, then been set aside. No one had thought that a strong and robust Jinwu guard would get himself robbed or murdered. Perhaps he was keeping a lover somewhere and, too happy to remember his duty, was hanging back, not coming home. But today, Wu Baxiu's headless corpse had been recovered from a dried-up well in a village in the capital's outskirts. A disappearance and a homicide case involving a court official were of such different gravity that they couldn't be spoken of in the same breath. Yan Xiaohan asked, "Has the head been found?" The scout said, "Not yet. The local authorities have already ordered the entire village sealed off and are exerting all their efforts to search." Yan Xiaohan said, "Go request the file from Shuntian Prefecture and dig up everything there about his family. I'll go to the palace at once. Have Jiang Shu take some people to the village to keep an eye on things, but not reveal their identities, only investigate in secret. This matter concerns the South Yemen. I'm afraid His Majesty will be unwilling to let the Feilong Guard have a hand in it." The scout went to obey orders. Yan Xiaohan was anxious to go to the palace and had no time to spare to eat a normal meal. He hurriedly ate a couple mouthfuls of pastry and went to change his clothes. By the time he was cleaned up, by chance, Fu Shen and Ya Qiaoting had also finished their discussion. Seeing his appearance, Fu Shen said in surprise, "Are you going out?" "Official business," Yan Xiaohan explained concisely, then bent down and gently hugged him. Into his ear he rapidly instructed, "I know you have to leave today. There's breakfast ready outside. Eat before you go. Take care on your way. If you like anything in this manner, go right ahead and take it. I can't see you off myself today. I'm sorry. When I've dealt with this matter, I'll go see you." Fu Shen gently patted his shoulder and sighed. "I think you'd better leave the official business alone and lie down in a crate and come with me." Without prearrangement, the two of them laughed. Yan Xiaohan straightened up and then saluted Yu Qiaoting. "I'll be going now. I'll trouble you to look after Jing Yuan, General." General Yu seemed to be fed up before he had even eaten breakfast. Numbly, he said, "No problem." Near 11 in the morning, a carriage stopped before the gate of a villa at the foot of Mount Chengli in the capital's outskirts. Seen from outside the gate, this villa was no different from an ordinary manor in the mountains, surrounded as usual by hill and water, the environment quiet and beautiful. But once you went through the main gate, a ruthless and grim murderous aura would instantly hit you in the face. Inside, the manor was full of armed Beiyuan cavalrymen making the rounds, patrolling and keeping guard day and night, turning this perfectly good manor into a Beiyuan army barracks, sealed tight as a drum. This time, apart from Yu Qiaoting, Army Doctor Du Ling and Xiao Xun, in command of a team of personal guards, had also accompanied Fu Shen back to the capital, ostensibly under the cover of escorting the bride, but in reality for the sake of guarding this manor. Fu Shen sat in his wheelchair and was pushed by Yu Qiaoting into the rear courtyard. Xiao Xun opened a secret door, revealing the dark, clammy underground passage behind it. Yu Qiaoting and Xiao Xun, one on either side, lifted Fu Shen's wheelchair and went down the long flight of stone steps. The oil lamps on the stone walls lit up one by one. Illumination gradually spread until it had reached the deepest recesses of the underground passage, lighting up a gruesome scene to chill the stomach. There was a prisoner's cage there, with stone walls on 3 sides and iron bars on one. There was moldy rice straw spread over the ice-cold damp floor. A human figure, wearing only a thin white inner robe, was huddled in a corner, hair disheveled, covering his face with his hands, his eyes stabbed so harshly by the sudden radiance that he couldn't open them. The wheelchair rolled over the ground, making a rumbling noise accompanied by extremely soft footfalls, coming closer and closer, and at last stopping in front of the iron bars. "How is it? Have you gotten used to it here?" The man's low, intimate, smiling voice resounded in the prison, perfectly controlled, not at all somber, yet it made the prisoner in the corner leap up like a fish, as if he had been injected with poison. He seemed to have been scared out of his mind. His teeth chattered. Shakily, he said, "You?" "Yes, me." Fu Shen sat upright and still, and mildly said, "How long since we last met? It seems that General Mu still remembers me." "Oh, no, I ought to say the late right Jinwu Guard General Mu Baxiu." Dun dun dun. Oh boy. Wouldn't it be fun if we just stopped right there? We still have 2 chapters, don't worry. I can hear myself getting nasally. Sorry about that. Oh. The deepest fear appeared in Mu Baxiu's eyes. You. Fu Shen smiled faintly. "Aren't you still alive and well? If you don't believe it, pinch your thigh, see whether it hurts." The more false courtesy he displayed, the more he dodged and circled, not entering upon the main subject, the more uneasy Mu Baxiu became. He wished he could simply die rather than be tormented at Fu Shen's hands. "Why does it seem to me that General Mu is very scared of me?" Fu Shen asked with interest. "You fear me more than death, In fact, it wasn't as if Fu Shen was part of the Feilong Guard, who struck terror into people's hearts with the sound of their name. And on top of that, he was a handsome and charming young fellow. An ordinary person shouldn't have trembled so humiliatingly on seeing him." Mu Baxiu clenched his teeth. Putting on a fierce expression over his cowardly insides, he sternly said, "Privately imprisoning an official of the court? Aren't you afraid the Feilong Guard's investigation will reach you, General Fu?" Yu Chiao Ting and Zhao Jun stirred uneasily. Fu Shen laughed and even clapped twice. "Permit me to give you a word of warning, General Mu. Don't forget that you're already a dead man whose corpse is lying in Shuntian Prefecture. In other words, do you think you'll have the chance to leave here alive? As for the Feilong Guard, their imperial investigator is mine now. Their investigation will reach me. I look forward to it." Yu Qiaoting gave a cough, reminding him to observe propriety, get to the serious business, and stop bragging. Wu Baxiu finally noticed that Fu Shen was actually just toying with him, like a cat that had caught a rat and wasn't in a hurry to eat it, wanting to play until it was half dead first. At the end of his endurance, he finally said, "What do you actually want?" Fu Shen said, "You're a smart man. I've appeared before you sitting in a wheelchair. Can't you guess what I want?" Mu Baxiu clenched his teeth. "I don't know." Fu Shen's smile instantly turned cold. He said softly, "Watch yourself. I'm only going to ask once. Will you answer? Mu Baxiu said as before, I don't know. Before the tail end of the word no had faded, Fu Shen attacked without warning. A cold gleam flashed, whistling through the air, and a crossbow bolt whizzed as it entered Mu Baxiu's left shoulder. Acute pain exploded from the sudden puncture. Mu Baxiu had been entirely unprepared. He let out a dull groan. Fu Shen held a cleverly made miniature crossbow. The second bolt was pointed at his right shoulder. Do you still not want to talk? Mu Baxiu broke out in a cold sweat from the pain. He leaned back feebly against the wall, unwilling to answer. Fu Shen, entirely pitiless, shot another bolt. The force of this bolt was even greater. The sharp arrowhead went right through the shoulder, firmly nailing Mu Baxiu to the wall. Fu Shen indolently loaded a new bolt and gently said, It doesn't matter if you don't want to speak now. Before you get shot into a sieve, you'll have a great deal of time to think things over slowly. A dead man can't speak, so I'll have to drop it. But you're a living man. Is there any need for me to worry that you won't speak? This time, he took aim at Mu Baxiu's right leg. Set your mind at ease. My archery skills are quite good. If I want to hit your right leg, I certainly won't hit your left by mistake. 3. When the third bolt flew out, Mu Baxiu let out an inhuman scream. The blood flowing out of him had soaked the ground. Sadly, the 3 people in front of him were iron-willed military officers who killed without batting an eye. Faced with this cruel torture, no one called it to a halt. The lofty gazes seemed to be regarding an insect, abruptly making Mu Baxiu feel a more frightening chill than death. Fu Shen's lips parted slightly. As the word "for" was about to leave his mouth, the prisoner in the cell at last gave up his resistance. In a weak voice he moaned, I'll talk. Fu Shen urbanely said, Go ahead. Your guess is right, Mu Baxiu said. We carried out the Kinsha Gap attack under orders. I personally shot the arrow that failed to hit you. Fu Shen reached a hand out to one side, and Zhao Zun passed him a cracked wooden box. Fu Shen opened the box and displayed its inside to Mu Baxiu. He asked, Was it this arrow? Mu Baxiu struggled to raise his head and take a look. Yes. The crossbow bolt was entirely pitch black, about 7 inches long, with a flat 3-cornered steel arrowhead with 2 deep notches along the side. The end of the arrow had the military character that was the imprint of the military arms of office. Where the arrowhead met the shaft was a leopard character drawn in a single stroke that looked like a wild animal. Yan Shaohan had told Fu Shen that this leopard character represented the Bao Tao Guard. The Bao Tao Guard was one of the imperial family's guard teams belonging to the 10 South Yemen Guard, a very discreet imperial guard team. The original meaning of Bao Tao was a quiver made from leopard skin because the Bao Tao Guard frequently sent sentinels into the imperial city's heights, were skilled in archery. From this, they took their name. That's kind of interesting. And the arrow in Fu Shen's hand came from the military arms office's crossbow workshop, made for Imperial Guard use. He had ordered an investigation. Several years ago, the crossbow workshop had manufactured a batch of armor-piercing bolts for use with a miniature crossbow and distributed them for use by the Imperial Guards and the Imperial City troops. But because, while the arrows had a long range, its demands on the archer's arm strength were too great, and only one arrow could be shot at a time. It was of trifling value, so it hadn't spread widely throughout the armed forces. The bolts that hadn't been put to good use had been tossed into some unknown storehouse to collect dust. This arrow had been a momentary event within the Imperial Guard. Fushen had never seen it before, and the weapons of the Imperial Guard were updated extremely quickly. Everyone had long ago forgotten that they had once used crossbow bolts like these. If not for the hint given to him by the piece of paper that had been caught between the box's layers, as well as Yan Xiaohan's verification, Fushen's people probably still wouldn't have found any concrete leads. I didn't expect you to be able to find this. I thought it was buried in the Kinshaw Gap. Wu Boxiu lay dejectedly on the ground, face up, his eyes hollow. Blankly he whispered, "This is the will of heaven." While the miniature crossbow developed by the Military Arms Office wasn't suitable for use in war, it excelled in portability and maneuverability, with enormous destructive force. It was a rather convenient weapon for use in assassinations. But this crossbow bolt had become a fatal error on Wu Boxiu's part. He had always held posts in the Imperial Guard, first in the Bao Tao Guard, later being transferred to the Jinwu Guard. All weapons used by the Imperial Guard came from the Military Arms Office, which had led to Wu Boxiu ignoring a piece of common sense out of force of habit. The ordinary crossbow bolts used by military forces in other places wouldn't have the military character stamp of the Military Arms Office. Fushen wasn't in the mood to hear his belated repentance. He cut straight to the point and asked, who was the mastermind behind the attack in the Kinshaw Gap? Wu Boxiu seemed to have heard a colossal joke. He began to laugh hoarsely. General Fu, I'm already here. Don't you know yet who wants to kill you? Fushen, keeping his cool, said, I don't know. If I knew, I wouldn't have asked you. Did he really not know? During the attack in the Kinshaw Gap, the problem had come from the route known only to the Beiyuan army's own people. Fushen's greatest suspicion at that time had been that someone had betrayed them to a foreign nation. Only after that had come the faint suspicion that his and Prince Su's private little machinations had angered Emperor Yun Tai. Regardless of which possibility it was, there was a plant in the Beiyuan army. He had used his injury as an opportunity to withdraw from the position of commander, wanting to find that plant. But before Fushen could take any action, this crossbow bolt that constituted crucial evidence had been delivered right to him. He had long ago become a splinter in the Emperor's eye, a thorn in his flesh. Even if Fushen handed back half of his military authority, like a gecko breaking off its own tail, cut ties with the Duke of Ying Manor, acted with the greatest caution, secluded himself in a corner at the northern border, he still couldn't escape the Emperor's profound suspicion and jealousy. Ignorant, naive, and stupid. If not him, who ought to be killed? Wu Boxiu laughed dementedly. He raised his injured arm and pointed upward. He yelled, The will of heaven. Don't understand yet? It's heaven that wants to kill you. Yun Chiao Ting clenched his fists. Zhao Jun breathed hard. Though they had been aware of it already, hearing with one's own ears the identification by the perpetrator, after all, came with a different kind of feeling of having been stabbed than what one had guessed for oneself. Fushen was calmer than either of them. He had experienced the dual shocks of the truth being revealed and of the arranged marriage. The deepest, most unforgettable piercing pain had already passed. Luckily, he'd had Yuan Shao Yuan Jiaohan beside him then. Though Fu Shen hadn't displayed it much with Yan Xiaohan's acuteness, he must have guessed some of the truth, or else he wouldn't have given him care that could be rated as painstaking and consideration that had been virtually obedience in all things. It had to be said that Yan Xiaohan's methods were skillful. When Fu Shen recalled the past now, the feeling of hatred and suffering were very faint. What he remembered instead were insignificant daily trifles between the two of them. What a pity that I didn't die. I'm truly sorry. I don't even know what I tried to say there. I'm truly sorry. Fu Shen was expressionless. Listen carefully. I'm asking you who conveyed the order to you, who got the gunpowder, and via what channel. Who was it above you who planned out this ambush? This person who could make His Majesty go around the Feilong Guard and hand over as important a secret as an assassination attempt to him was the real crux. Mu Baxiu, who had just been in hysterics, abruptly shut his mouth and fell silent. Fu Shen said, "What? Don't want to talk again?" Blood was still flowing from the 3 arrows that had been nailed into his body. Mu Baxiu couldn't forget the iron-willed ruthlessness of killing without batting an eye that lay beneath Fu Shen's calm tone. These words made him shudder involuntarily. Survival instinct and reason grappled madly in his mind. But this time, Fu Shen didn't attack. Instead, propping up his head, he thoughtfully asked, "Come to think of it, I recall that at the outset you rose to the rank of captain in the Bao Tao Guard based on your archery skills. So why were you later transferred to the Jinwu Guard?" He had captured Mu Baxiu, so naturally he knew everything there was to know about his family and background. Not counting the Feilong Guard, among the 16 guard teams of the North and South Imperial Guards, the hardest of all to get into was the Jinwu Guard, without exception. The Jinwu Guard was the head of the 10 South Yemen Guards, serving in His Majesty's presence, extremely lofty. Practically all those chosen for it were the sons of nobles and ministers who had been rendered outstanding service. Mu Baxiu's birth wasn't high, and while his abilities were outstanding, becoming a general in the Bao Tao Guard was already a towering achievement for him. How had he gotten into the Jinwu Guard? Mu Baxiu's silence continued, and so did Fu Shen's blind guesses. Was it because someone promoted you? And it's out of gratitude that you're willing to stopper your mouth for his sake. Mu Baxiu seemed to have made up his mind to be a clamshell. But this reaction could in fact bear out the soundness of Fu Shen's guesses. He sneered coldly. Profound affections? There is something that General Mu perhaps doesn't know yet, Fu Shen said, and boasted shamelessly. I have personally always been particular about trying the peaceful route before turning to violence. I never wantonly slaughter the innocent. Recently, while my people were investigating you, they were firmly convinced that they hadn't alerted you. Therefore, on the 3rd day of the 1st month, why did you suddenly abandon your wife and family and run away in haste? And later, why did you not stint to use another corpse to stand in for you, henceforth vanishing from the world without a trace? Mu Baxiu abruptly froze. He asked suspiciously, "That wasn't you?" Fu Shen said, "What are you hiding?" Mu Baxiu was visibly shaken, but he still didn't dare to trust Fu Shen. Fu Shen considered it for a moment, then said, "You didn't stint to fake your death, which shows that the person was trying to kill you. But I had something to ask you, so before I saw you with my own eyes, my people certainly couldn't have attacked you. He fixed his eyes on Mu Boxiu, the oppressive presence sharpened by many years of life on the battlefield like toppling of mountains, an upending of seas, pressing down so hard that Mu Boxiu couldn't lift his head. Who is that person? Mu Boxiu wasn't the kind of idiot to be bought and then help count the money. Fu Shen wasn't bluffing. With a bit of thought, he could figure out the key to this. I advise you to get over it, Fu Shen said. You've fallen into my hands, and you're going to die anyhow. You may as well take someone with you. The sequence of events had already been laid out for the most part. Even if Mu Boxiu didn't say anything, if he only had time, these clues would be enough for Fu Shen to find the person behind him. That he was still willing to waste his time here on Mu Boxiu showed that Mu Boxiu still had value. If he spoke well, he might be able to live a few more days. Mu Boxiu shrank once again into silence. This time, Fu Shen didn't press him. Shortly, he at last abandoned resistance and spoke at length and obscenely. I joined the Bao Tao Guard when I was 17 and was promoted to captain at 22. But because I had inadvertently offended a superior, I was repeatedly beaten down. I didn't advance again until I was 30. It was that person who happened to discover that my archery was outstanding and made an exception to have me transferred to the Jinwu Guard. He viewed me as a trusted subordinate. The North and South Yemen have a history of not getting along, especially after Yan Xiaohan came into power. With the Falun Guard growing strong, the North Yemen repressed the South Yemen. That person was unwilling to be neglected like that, so he devised ways and means to attract capable and talented people to enrich the Jinwu Guard and handle quite a number of disobedient ministers for His Majesty. The three people listening, with bated breath simultaneously, felt a chill at heart. The most rarefied of the 16 imperial guards, the Jinwu Guard, which had always been seen as a place for not seeking advancement, doing nothing, and living in comfort, had without anyone's noticing it silently transformed into the Emperor's team of killers. Mu Boxiu said, in recent years, His Majesty has increasingly placed his trust in the Jinwu Guard. Last year, after the Battle of the Xiuqiu Pass, he selected a few people from the Jinwu Guard and laid down the plans for the Qinsha Gap attack. The Qinsha Gap is located on the northern part of the shared border between Tongshao and Yuanzhou. You had to pass through there while leading your people in escorting the Eastern Tartar diplomatic mission to the capital. So before you arrived, Yuan Shao's Yuan army sent people to check on the Qinsha Gap. The head of Yuan Shao's defense is His Majesty's man. We mixed in among that team and laid gunpowder around the Qinsha Gap. Fu Shen suddenly interrupted him. Wait, where did you get your gunpowder? Gunpowder was restricted to military use and couldn't be privately traded among civilians, and every coming and going of gunpowder in the army had to be recorded. Yunshao was the place where the Beiyuan cavalry was stationed. Even if there was someone inside the army cooperating with someone on the outside, they still couldn't misappropriate gunpowder without anyone noticing. Moreover, Fu Shen had ordered the investigation of the flow of gunpowder in all the provisions near the Qinsha Gap after the fact and found no abnormalities. From a wild channel, Mu Boxiu said. There's a wild channel between Tongshao's defense force and horse thieves on the border. The Tingshao forces privately steal and sell gunpowder to the horse thieves. Their gunpowder logs are entirely fake. We dressed up as Eastern Tartars and bought the gunpowder from the horse thieves. Yun Shao was under Fu Shen's direct command, and Tong Shao was Fu Shen's former subordinate. The mighty commander of the Beiyuan army hadn't died on the battlefield, but had overturned his ship in a gutter, falling to the hands of his own people. Fu Shen's lungs nearly burst from anger. There was nowhere to vent his rage. From between his teeth he squeezed out, "Those traitorous bastards." Zhao Jun asked in disbelief, "Are you saying that Qi Jiangsheng is His Majesty's man?" Among the generals under Fu Shen's command, Zhao Jun and Yu Qiaoting were responsible for the military affairs of Yan Shao's three passes. Yuan Huan defended the area of Zhuanqing, and Qi Jiangsheng defended Yuanshao. They were all his aides and trusted subordinates, his fellow officers, lifelong friends. Yuan Qiaoting quickly soothed him. "General, calm yourself." Fu Shen ignored him. He calmed his emotions and grim-faced said, "Continue." Mu Baxiu said, "According to the plan, 2 people responsible for igniting the fuse. I was keeping watch from above. If you weren't stopped by the falling rocks, it was up to me to add an arrow. No matter what, we couldn't let you leave the Kinshaw Gap alive. But your fate is made of sterner stuff than the rocks. All of that, and you still didn't die. Not only that, you came back alive. I mean, that's what it means not to die. I mean, it just seems superfluous. I was afraid that your investigation would find me and spent every day with my heart in my throat. At last, late at night on the 2nd of the 1st month, someone broke into my home and tried to kill me. My wife had just happened to take our children to visit her parents that day, so I was home alone. I injured that person. I thought that everything had been exposed, so that very night I gathered up my valuables and fled the capital. When I had reached Dongwang village, I became aware that someone had been following me all along. So I stole a corpse from a coffin house, put my clothes on him, and deliberately left behind a jade thumb ring that never leaves me. I cut off his head and tossed the headless corpse down a dry well. That person's head I buried in the forest behind Dongwang village. By this point, it must have rotted to nothing but bone. This way, if someone found that corpse, the person hunting me would know that I was already dead. After faking his death, Mu Baxiu had wanted to keep running south, not expecting that before he could even leave the county seat, he would be captured and brought back by the Beiyuan cavalrymen who had been following him for days. Once the sequence of cause and effect was put together, it did in fact align perfectly with all the facts he knew. But there was still something Fu Shen couldn't work out. If that person had wanted to kill Mu Baxiu in order to silence him, why hadn't he done it right after the ambush at the Kinshaw Gap and instead dragged it out this long? Or perhaps he hadn't originally been planning to silence him. So what was it that had made him feel threatened and forced him to abandon an instrument to protect the commander? Or perhaps Fu Shen and the Jinwu Guard weren't the only 2 parties involved. There was someone else who wanted to kill Mu Baxiu. Apart from them, the person who had sent Fu Shen the crossbow bolt, but also knew the truth. How many powers had this pool of murky water pulled in? Due to excessive blood loss, Mu Baxiu's breathing was growing weaker and weaker. He had probably already foreseen that the final result would be his death. Now he had calmed down. He said to Fu Shen, The person I'm speaking of ought to be very familiar to General Fu. The commander of the less Jinwu Guard, Yi Siming. Oh, damn. Oh, ain't that a bitch? Oh. Fu Shen said, "There's no need to say it. I've already guessed." The good friend of his youth, the loyal brother who had willingly run a risk to make arrangements for the Jin family survivors in his place, had in the end become a manipulator devoted to plotting his death from behind the scenes. The noble young lord with eyes growing at the top of his head, who had been full of scorn for the court's lackey, for the sake of keeping back the northern Yemen Imperial Guard, had turned the Jinwu Guard into murderers with less bottom line than even the Feilong Guard. Fu Shen didn't know how he ought to appease Yi Siming. His feelings weren't even as intense as when he had heard of the Tongshao force's falsified ledgers. He could no longer remember what encounters he had had with Yi Siming in recent years. Youthful friendships were as transient as morning dew. When the sun rose, they would disappear. Just like people in the end would all change into something different from what they had been. It was just that some people still showed the outlines of their past selves. Well, some people's faces had changed altogether. That's an amazing line right there. It was just that some people showed the outlines of their past selves, while some people's faces had changed altogether. Dang. Worldly events were inconsistent. The will of heaven was unfathomable. Fu Shen indicated for Zhao Xun to push him out. Extorting a confession was also exhausting work. He needed time to slowly digest these truths. On hearing him leave, Mu Baxiu didn't speak. To beg forgiveness from start to finish. In the prison, he closed his eyes, spent. Bright daylight and fresh air poured in together, clearing the eyes and ears. Yu Qiao Ting closed the stone door behind them. Fu Shen suddenly said, "Have Du Lang come take a look at his wounds. Don't let him die." "Yes, sir," Yu Qiao Ting agreed. "It's past midday, Lord Marquis. You should go eat something." "I won't eat." Fu Shen waved a hand. "Has the bedroom been cleaned up? I want to sleep. Don't bother me unless something comes up." It was clear to see that he was in a bad mood. At a time like this, no one dared to give counsel, and no one dared to disobey. Zhao Xun pushed Fu Shen into the bedroom. Yu Qiao Ting stood under a tree in the courtyard inside. Honestly, what is the world coming to? Zhao Xun silently patted him on the shoulder. People who wandered often along the border between life and death all had an acute foreboding that was nearly institution when it came to danger. Intuition. I was like, that's not right. It was nearly intuition when it came to danger. Without prearrangement, Yu Qiao Ting and Zhao Xun looked simultaneously at the horizon, where dense clouds were massing. Winter was ending and spring was coming. All living things would come back to life. There was faint thunder, but the future seemed to be shaded by a layer of dense foliage. This year would perhaps not be as calm and tranquil as certain people expected. Okay. Quick tea break, then the last chapter. Okay. Chapter 29. Fu Shen had thought that Yan Shaohan would be busy for some time, not expecting him to appear at the manor's breakfast table on the third day. Fu Shen was for once surprised. He asked in astonishment, "Have you finished your business?" No, Yan Xiaohan boldly sat down across the table from him. It's not my business anymore. Said Fu Shen. Yan Xiaohan said in deadly earnest. 9 days of wedding leave aren't meant to be used on trifles like work. That doesn't sound like something Lord Yan would say, Fu Shen said. You Phelan guards are the greatest experts at making trouble out of nothing. How could you let a ready-made egg with a crack in it fall without throwing yourself at it? Yan Xiaohan didn't turn on him despite being ridiculed. He calmly said, Haven't I come to give you a hug? Fu Shen was eating. Hearing this, he dropped his chopsticks on the spot. Yan Xiaohan, holding back laughter, put the chopsticks back into his hand with every appearance of indulgence. Fine, fine, I'll stop talking. Eat up. Fu Shen pointed at him. If we were in Yanshao, you would have been dragged out and caned by now. Who chose the subject? Yan Xiaohan knew this was only bluster on his part and took advantage all the more. How unreasonable. There really was nothing Fu Shen could do to him. All he could do was fiercely pick up a bun and stop his mouth. When the meal was finished, Yan Xiaohan pushed him outside for a stroll to digest. Only then did the two of them once again bring up the subject of conversation at the table. How is that case progressing? You must have turned up quite a lot over the last couple of days. Are you really not going to continue your investigation? Yan Xiaohan said. When I said it's not my business, I meant it in the literal sense. His Majesty has ordered that Shuntian Prefecture investigate alongside the Ministry of Justice and the Imperial Court of Judicial Review. The Jinwu Guard's business doesn't fall within the Phelan Guard's purview. Fu Shen jeered. Hey, after all that fuss, it turns out he kicked you out. And here you were, swaggering around in front of me. Yan Xiaohan was exasperated and amused. When he looked down, he just happened to meet Fu Shen's eyes. He was standing high above, an indulgent smile rippling through his fine, deep eyes, his expression relaxed and natural. Per Fu Shen's observations, Yan Xiaohan's bearing in front of others was always tense. It wasn't that he was nervous, but rather that his words and actions were all overly precise. Even his skillfulness and nonchalance seemed to be planned, like a metal pitcher that didn't let a single drop leak out. All his truest and most natural reactions hidden under the thick metal casing. But today, somehow, he had suddenly abandoned his pretenses and precautions. He had transformed into tranquility and mildness writ large. As he kept his eyes fixed on Fu Shen actually felt his face heat slightly. So cute. He acknowledged that the reason he had already been swayed was the abyss of many years between the two of them. Fu Shen regarded him as a man who wasn't superficial, but now it turned out that he could be dazzled by beauty. God, I love them. Yan Xiaohan regarded the slowly reddening roots of his ears, gave a laugh, and reached out to pinch his earlobe. Here I thought that you'd tricked me into your clutches and had enough of me, Lord Marquis. I hadn't thought that you actually rather like me. Obviously, I've stared myself into a trance. What more indications that I like you do you want? He's such a tsundere. Oh my god. Fu Shen pinched his waist and spoke sternly with the force of justice. Hands to yourself. Stop groping. Talk with proper business. Yan Xiaohan accordingly gave an but he temporarily forgot himself in his complacency and didn't keep down the rising lit in his voice. Fu Shen immediately found a flaw to nitpick. Don't give me such a mocking Do it again. Yan Xiaohan didn't say a word. Jokes were jokes. The two of them returned to the main subject, which had run 8,000 li away. Fu Shen said, "Even if His Majesty won't let you take part, you must have investigated privately. What did you find?" Yan Xiaohan made no comment. Instead, he asked, "Why are you so concerned about this case?" "Curiosity," said Fu Shen. Yan Xiaohan said, "You aren't the sort of person to stick your nose into other people's business. What is your connection to Mu Baxiu?" Fu Shen narrowed his eyes. "Since you've asked this question, then I would also like to ask, is there any connection at all between you coming to see me today and the Mu Baxiu case?" Yan Xiaohan regarded him quietly. The two of them faced each other in silence. "Very well." Yan Xiaohan was the first to yield. "It's not that I suspect you. It's just that I have some questions. When I sent people to investigate Mu Baxiu's background, I heard that someone had already come to investigate him a month ago. That's one. The headless male corpse found in Dongwang village had already rotted. Can only be determined from his clothing and the objects found on him that he is Mu Baxiu. But the purpose of cutting off the head is to make it impossible to identify the corpse. So why did the killer leave a white jade thumb ring that could prove his identity? It's not rational. That's two. Mo Baxiu first held office in the Baotao Guard and was later transferred to the Jinwu Guard. I recall that one day last year you mentioned the Baotao Guard to me." Fu Shen coldly said, "Lord Yan, have you cooked up so many false accusations that you've forgotten how to investigate a normal case?" "You're not being rational either," Yan Xiaohan continued. "Yu Qingheng is your trusted aide. Yet at this crucial moment, when the Beiyuan army has lost its mainstay, you've brought him back to the capital and have insisted on staying at this manor. Permit me to ask, the night we were wed, did all those Beiyuan cavalrymen you brought back with you stay the night at the Marquis' manor?" Fu Shen didn't respond. It was unclear whether he was planning to admit his guilt and accept punishment, or getting ready to kill the witness. He waited expressionlessly for Yan Xiaohan to continue. "The final point is that His Majesty's attitude towards this case is also very strange." Yan Xiaohan paused and then said, "The Fei Long Guard are the Emperor's eyes and ears. Our investigative efficiency far suppresses that of the three judicial chief ministries. When an official of the court is killed, even if he is connected to the South Yemen, it doesn't make sense to ignore what's close at hand and seek a solution afar, cast away the Fei Long Guard, and have the Ministry of Justice and the Imperial Court of Judicial Review investigate the truth instead. The last time such a circumstance occurred, it was during the case of the Eastern Tartar diplomatic mission. Do you understand me? If there is a matter about which His Majesty already knows the truth, he won't use the Fei Long Guard." The atmosphere chilled abruptly to freezing point. "Hey, at any rate, you haven't stupidly disclosed information." The frozen atmosphere suddenly melted like flowing water. Fu Shen leaned back easily in the wheelchair and gave a carefree laugh. "I've already warned you once. His Majesty doesn't trust you as much as you imagine. If you still won't be careful, the Fei Long Guard will be disbanded sooner or later." Yan Xiaohan frowned. "What do you mean?" "You've guessed most of it," Fu Shen said. "The corpse in Dongwang village was a blind put together by Mu Baxiu himself, in order to escape another group of people hunting him. As for my connections to him, that belongs to the Beiyuan army's internal secrets. I can't tell you, and it isn't connected to you. Continuing to investigate this case would be a waste of time. The only piece of information that, well, not very important, is useful to you. I could tell you directly. Look out for the Jinwu Guard. The Fei Long Guard isn't the only sword in His Majesty's hand. By the way, hello, whoever the few people that have come in. I'm really happy that you're here, and I hope you've been enjoying. While neither the Fei Long Guard nor the Jinwu Guard were much good, whether from private feeling or public interest, Fu Shen still wanted to lend Yan Xiaohan a hand. At any rate, he knew that Yan Xiaohan inside and out. Whether he truly didn't dare to trust in Yi Siming's character. Oh, my goodness, I am struggling with that sentence. I'm going to start over. At any rate, he knew Yan Xiaohan inside and out, whereas he truly didn't dare to trust in Yi Siming's character. Yan Xiaohan was dumbfounded. Many thoughts flickered through his mind, which he raked together and sorted out, one by one. As far as the survival of the Fei Long Guard was concerned, the information revealed in Fu Shen's words did in fact pose a great problem. After brief thought, he said solemnly to Fu Shen, "Thank you." Yan Xiaohan really hadn't expected Fu Shen to give him a warning in a matter that concerned the Fei Long Guard. In the Jin Yunfeng case, even though he had ultimately been lenient in the end, it still couldn't cover up the fact that he had stabbed Fu Shen in the back for the sake of getting ahead. In recent years, the Beiyuan cavalry had taken the strictest precautions against the Fei Long Guard. He had always thought that Fu Shen particularly hated the Fei Long Guard. But just now, right in front of him, Fu Shen had made an exception. He couldn't not know the weight of his hint. It practically amounted to strangling the Fei Long Guard's arch-enemy in its place. Yan Xiaohan's thoughts were complicated, but Fu Shen really seemed not to think much of it. He was indifferent. He said indifferently, "No need for thanks. It was the slightest exertion." That night, Yan Xiaohan stayed at the manor. Fu Shen had Xiao Jun find a guest room for him while he himself went to Dulang to have his dressings changed. Who would have thought that when he returned to his room, he would find that a grown man had appeared there? Fu Shen said, "What are you doing here?" Yan Xiaohan said, "The guest room hasn't been cleaned up. I can't stay there." "Nonsense," said Fu Shen. "I had them clean it up yesterday." "I'm not staying in the guest room." Yan Xiaohan was supremely confident in his own justness. "You and I are married. Why can't we share a bed?" But Yan Xiaohan seemed to have worked out. "Oh, wait. You think I wanted that?" Fu Shen said heartlessly. "Take it up with the one who arranged it." But Yan Xiaohan seemed to have worked out where Fu Shen's bottom line lay, and knew the limits within what mischief would be tolerated. Therefore, he gave a lengthy sigh and said, "Since ancient times, the fates of beauties have been unhappy. Earlier, you couldn't take your eyes off me, and in the blink of an eye, the beauty fades and passion cools." Fu Shen's head began to hurt. "Don't simper like a fox, spirit at me. Come over here and make the bed." It was easy to go from thrift to luxury, but hard to go from luxury to thrift. Before this, Fu Shen had been unwilling to face the fact that he had been pampered under Yan Xiaohan's care. But as soon as this person had arrived today, all the discomforts and jars he had felt since moving into the manor seemed to have been automatically cured at once. Zhao Jun and Yan Qiaoting weren't so attentive in looking after him. After Fu Shen had finished interrogating Mu Baxiu that afternoon, he had sat idle in his room until late at night. By the time he had felt hungry and wanted to find something to fill up his stomach, When he had gone out the side, he had found that the food and drink placed in the corridor had gone cold long ago. But during the time he had spent recuperating at Yan Manor, he practically hadn't remembered the word hunger. Something warm and smooth touched his lips. The aroma filled his nose. Then Yan Xiaohan's voice came from above his head. "Open your mouth." Fu Shen took a bite from his hand. The freshly made pastry was fragrant and soft, melting in his mouth. He casually said, "It's a little sweet." "I thought so too." Yan Xiaohan put the plate on the table and poured him a cup of tea. "The cook has a heavy hand. I'll tell her to go easy on the sugar next time." Fu Shen said, "Did you have the kitchen make it fresh just now? Didn't you eat your fill at dinner?" Yan Xiaohan, familiar with the routine, had gone to the cabinet to find him in inner robe. Hearing these words, he responded without lifting his head. "Your dinner was too plain. You should eat something before you go to bed so you don't wake up hungry in the middle of the night." Fu Shen awkwardly rubbed his nose. "Come to think of that army Dr. Du of yours, I think he isn't from the Central Plains?" "Right," Fu Shen said. "He's from Xinnan." "What about it?" Yan Xiaohan said, "I just went to look at the prescription he wrote for you. His methods are rather different from a Central Plains physician. It looks to me like he's only concerned with repairing the bone and sinew, and doesn't value building up overall health. Have Shen Yisei check your pulse later and prescribe some strengthening medicine or medicated foods. Taking medicine all the time damages your appetite. You have to eat well." Ever since the two of them had had a fight over Fu Shen not taking his medicine, it had become Yan Xiaohan's job to supervise and urge him to do it. In this respect, Yan Xiaohan had an absolute right to speak. He basically had the final word. Without exaggeration, if Yan Xiaohan one day wanted to poison Fu Shen might not even notice. He gave instructions as he remembered them, and Fu Shen agreed now and then. He suddenly thought that it would be pretty good if this attentiveness continued. His room was a little big to begin with Yan Xiaohan here now. It was perfect. A soft bundle of clothing fell onto his knees. Yan Xiaohan bent down and lifted him from the wheelchair. "Hold on to the clothes. Let's go bathe." The manor still had wash tubs in it and no screen. There was only a curtain in the middle as a partition. Fu Shen sat in the tub with his legs curled up. Suddenly, he heard Yan Xiaohan ask from the other side, "Who's been helping you bathe lately?" Fu Shen answered readily, "Zhao Changshan." When Yan Xiaohan thought of how he had assisted this master in bathing, he belatedly felt acid rise in his stomach. Sourly he muttered, "Why do you insist on living out here in the wilderness where you can't even bathe in peace? Eat jelly." Fu Shen was, in fact, very innocent. He normally had Zhao Jun push his wheelchair to the bathing room, then got into the tub by himself by leaning against the wall. Only Yan Xiaohan could pick him up. Even Yun Xiao Ting had to keep a distance to avoid arousing suspicion. He hadn't realized that Yan Xiaohan was jealous. Uncomprehendingly, he said, "And what great family are you from, young mistress? So fussy." Yan Xiaohan said nothing. He gave up on judging everyone by his own low standards. After a while, resigning himself to his fate, he scooped Fu Shen up out of the water and put him back on the bed in the bedroom. I'll go get the medicine. You wring out your hair, Fu Shen had suddenly grabbed his collar and dragged Yan Xiaohan up in front of him. He extended a finger and prodded the corner of his lips upward. From now on, I'll only let you pick me up. If you're not here, I won't bathe. Stop being jealous, all right? Yan Xiaohan froze. He unconsciously took Fu Shen's hand in his own. His eyes deep, he gazed fixedly at Fu Shen for a time, as if confirming something. Finally, he bent his head and lightly pressed his dry lips to his cheek. All right. Mind what you say. Fu Shen's heart instantly stopped, then went galloping full speed ahead. With a rumble, a sky full of fireworks burst. As Yan Xiaohan was about to straighten up and leave, Fu Shen swiftly reached out to hold the back of his neck and pulled him back into his arms. The two of them embraced, pressed neck to neck. The unprecedented closeness brought with it the utmost warmth and elation. He had thought before that he had only been moved a tiny bit, but it turned out that without him knowing it, so much had accumulated bit by bit. Irresistible emotion was the matter of only an instant. As he had kissed him, countless possible reactions Fu Shen might have had flashed through Yan Xiaohan's mind. But the only thing he hadn't expected was the present situation. He heard Fu Shen's smiling voice against his temple. It seemed to come from his nose, low and hoarse, and with an unspeakable softness and sweetness. Don't run off. That was a good kiss just now. How about another? And that is how we end it this week. Or today. Not this week. We have Thursday. But that's the end of chapter 29. What an ending. We ended on a cheek kiss and snuggling. I think that's pretty good. There's been some really sweet chapters in here. Like, truly. And I'm definitely looking forward to what comes next. Because that was kind of a good spot to end it. I mean, I know we kind of cut it off before it potentially got spicy. But it had at least kind of a conclusion. But yeah, so the chapters this time were so cute. I completely agree. There's some truly wholesome moments in what I was expecting to be a rather political heavy book. Like, I mean, we definitely have our political intrigue, almost harem drama, politics seeming going on with the emperor and all that, as much as it can be. But yeah, there were some really cute moments between our boys. But anyway, I am tired. It is late, and I will hopefully see all of you on Thursday at 8 CST. So I am going to say goodnight. Good night, friends. See you next time. Well, hang on. The chapters for next time will be chapter 30 through 36. So look forward to that on Thursday. All right. Good night.